and welcome to a new episode of the Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Ben Hansen, joined by Joe Juba.
That's me.
And we got Ben Reeves.
Hello.
And we have Jeffrey Cork.
What's up, guys?
Hey guys,
YouTube.
how you doing? Tell me how you doing in the comments
How's
below.
it going?
Hey, how you doing, YouTube, audio? We got subscribe on iTunes.
Like, subscribe, we'll do anything.
We'll do anything you like. Hey, welcome to the big show, everybody. We are talking about
show.
a lot of big games. It's December. People say the year's over. Games are in yesteryear, man. No, we got a lot coming up. We're talking about Prey.
Woo.
Our new cover story is on Prey from Arcane, the creators of Dishonored. We're going to talk about all about that trip, what we saw, what's cool, what's not cool, everything under the sun. After that, The Last Guardian. Woo! Hot damn. Joe's beat it. I beat it. We're
Sort of a
going to
woo.
get some more people in here who've played a boatload of it. After that, talking about Dead Rising 4.
Woo.
Ow.
I feel like I don't know much about this game.
All right, let's keep it that way.
Great.
Moving on.
And then after that, I have some great emails. And then after that whole thing, we are talking about PSX and the Game Awards. We have some people that were actually at the show. We're going to try and get Andy McNamara on, who hosted a panel about Last of Us Part 2. So there's a lot to talk about with all that stuff. Yeah, crazy stuff.
He looks like Steve Carell, I hear.
That's what the internet tells me. Prey, everybody.
Yeah.
Let's
Going right into it.
Let's go right into it. So this is weeks and weeks ago. Specifically, it was the Call of Duty Infinite Warfare Final Fantasy 15 preview episode of the Game Informer Show. During that week that aired, the three of us, not Joe, we were down in Austin, Texas, visiting Arcane.
Yeah.
More specifically, I was getting sick and then coming back to Extra Life, and so that was the reason my voice was gone. You can blame Bethesda and Prey specifically, I think. But the game, we saw a lengthy demo that they have not released publicly. They did release an awesome long gameplay demo, which they showed at QuakeCon, which gives you a good idea of what the game is. We saw stuff beyond that. We spent 2 days asking a million questions. Cork, what did you think of your time seeing Prey?
I thought that game looked pretty cool.
Reeves?
I thought it looked really good, too. I'm a big fan of Dishonored, the Dishonored series. And they said this, which I thought was striking, is like kind of what they tried to do for Dishonored was kind of like their version of Thief.
Right.
They're trying to do their version of System Shock with Prey.
Prey seems very much like a game that a certain subset of people are going to lose their minds over. It seems tailor-made for, I think on the trip, the phrase that came to mind was a gamer-ass game for gamers. Just systems heavy. It's a space station riddled with aliens. At a certain point, you can just have free reign over the space station, go outside, float in, find new access points. The Metroid comparisons have been made.
Right.
NeoGAF seem to be running with that System Shock meets Super Metroid comparison.
To be fair, your house is like Metroid. If you think about it, you have your keys with you. Suddenly, all these different doors are available too. So let's not overemphasize the importance of Metroid.
No, my apartment is a Metroidvania. I agree. Yeah.
I have a lot of trouble just getting past why is this game called Prey?
Why? What do you mean?
Okay, so you're joking, but I think it's just really strange because it's not like this game has a tie to the previous Prey franchise, right?
No.
But it's also like, it's not that Prey that had a sequel that then got canceled. So there's just been that one Prey game that came out like 10 years ago. It's not like this is a juggernaut IP that has all of this sort of loyalty behind it. Like, I imagine that you're just losing more than you're gaining by putting it on there.
Like they could have called this anything.
Well, because you called it, I think they should have called this something else based on what I've I've read Geoff's cover story and stuff. I think I just don't get it.
I think ultimately what comes down to, and I talked to Pete Hines from Bethesda about this, is like they are in a position where, as a publisher, they have the rights to the name Prey. And incidentally, whether or not you're thinking about the baggage that accompanies that game and the IP, Prey is just a good name for a game. And I think it sums up, they're saying that it sums up what the game is about, where there's a relationship, a prey hunter position kind of thing going on in the space station. And
I think to get down on the ground, realistically, what it felt like from visiting that studio is this game is not connected to the old Prey. It's not connected to the Prey 2, which the comment section, since we revealed the cover story, has informed me that they really wanted that human head Prey 2.
Apparently.
There's a lot more animosity towards that than I imagined. But realistically, the sense that I got is like Arcane wanted to make a game like Arx Fatalis, their old game from 2002. They wanted to make a game that they called their space dungeon game, where it's like, hey, you're in space, you're in a confined space. And it seemed like it's just a case of developer and publisher meeting each other halfway. Like, hey, you want to do something crazy? okay, we own this Prey name. That's going to lead to probably X number more pre-orders because people are familiar with the name and it's some level of brand recognition. Let's just combine these two. But Arcane does not want to even really discuss the other Prey because it's not a love letter to that old game or anything like that. And Raph, the creative director down there, he had an interesting take where he's like, well, movies, every 10 years, a new movie can come out with the same name and no one complains about it. Why can't games do the same? So they're very much trying to position this as a new IP, just a frustrating new IP that uses the name of that other game that it's not connected to at all.
Yeah, and I feel like gamers probably have longer memories than moviegoers when it comes. Like, no one's going to be confused by a movie when that happens. But like IPs are so front and center when it comes to video games that I just don't understand. I just don't get it. I think it is a bad idea.
It's led to more confusion, I'm sure, than they would like. But
especially because you say, I mean, even like you said, there'll be more pre-orders if we call it Prey. No, there won't. Who remembers Prey that well, you know?
So then I think
especially when you factor in, if you do give it a different name, I think that there's more enthusiasm that will swell up among people who would have recognized Prey if you just call it something new and try and sell it as like, hey, here's a new IP.
Totally. Somewhere there's a spreadsheet within Bethesda headquarters, ZeniMax space station out there floating around the planet, where they crunched the numbers and realized we're going to do better and make a bigger splash if we call this Prey. Who knows if it's the right call? But the team is very much positioning this as something new. I feel like this game is really interesting, and I don't think the industry is paying enough attention to it for how interesting and weird it is.
I mean, you were won over by the second you heard that you could turn it into a coffee cup, though, right? Like that
when Reiner was on this podcast, I had no idea. I was part of the uninformed masses that had no idea that this game was so weird that you can turn into a coffee cup and jump around like a character from Beauty and the Beast.
Which I imagine like this like crazy like Toy Story kind of like dumb animated thing, which looks hokey, but like when you're playing the game, like the game's kind of dark and moody and serious,
and then there's this Toy Story character jumping
exactly.
around.
Well, but it works, and somehow it's weird and goofy, but it works and it's fun, and it opens up a lot of like opportunities for you like to turn into a small thing and just slip through a crack in a door that you couldn't normally get through. Like it's cool. And
can you give me more examples like that? I'm curious because like from what Ben just said and what Reeves and then what Hansen was saying before, like you talk about crazy possibilities sort of spiraling out. Like what kinds of stuff can you do? What like that gets you
Let's
so
go with just the mimic alien alone, which is, basically the head crab that you encounter early on. It's this alien type, and then you learn to use the ability to mime things. And they say you can become anything that's not bolted down. You can't become like other humans. You can become a robot. You can become a turret. You can become a roll of toilet paper and roll down the hallway, which I'm sure you're into. There is a weird... I know Cork's going to make fun of me for being so into this, but I thought it was awesome. You enter this room, right, in the demo that we saw, and there's a little stage with instruments on it. So it's got like a keyboard, drums, a guitar, a bass. You can mimic any instrument. You can mimic like a guitar and then just sit there as a guitar on the stage. And there's also an alien called the Poltergeist, which we'll probably talk about in a little bit here. But he just he's invisible and he kind of rattles stuff. So it's conceivable that you can become a guitar on a stage and then another alien can play you, not realizing that it's you. Because he just interacts with the different objects in the room.
Okay.
For those of you who aren't watching the video feed, Joe's jaw just dropped off the ground and he looked very excited. Like a possibility.
Cartoon wolf.
Right. Well, no, I guess so. What I'm having trouble understanding is like, okay, so you turn into something.
Yeah.
Does this work? So let's say the room's full of aliens and you turn into a guitar.
Yeah.
Is that like effective camouflage?
Yes.
Or is it like, are you in an empty room and like, oh, I'm going to turn into that guitar. And then you just sit there inert as a guitar for 5 minutes waiting for an alien to wander into the room and play
wouldn't that be fun? I mean, come on. No, it's an active camouflage thing. So you might be running from enemies, run around a corner, turn into something like a guitar or coffee mug or whatever, chair. And then they come around the corner and they're like, "Oh, where'd he go?" I mean, they don't talk like that.
Better play the guitar for a while.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a good way to like hide. And I think they said something about you couldn't be hurt when you're an object, right?
You get knocked out of it.
You can get knocked out of being that object if you get hit hard enough.
Okay.
But you're also sort of immune to damage in that state.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's another simple example of like if there's an alien hiding up. This is an example Ricardo Bear, the lead designer, used. But if there's like an alien on like the third floor of this space, like way high up, and you can't quite reach it to shoot it, you can use a power called Lift, different ability, and actually use lift on like a turret that will automatically detect the aliens, and the turret will then hover up to the ceiling and then automatically shoot the alien up there.
Oh, okay.
Weird little things you can do. But then more on the playful side, there's also like a glue gun. And you can, it's basically like, I forget how they even described it. But
it's like a riot foam.
It's exactly it that you can coat all the enemies with. But you can also use it, and they showed it in the video that they released, to like use it on a wall in like this diagonal line, and you can make a fake staircase for yourself using it.
Okay.
Or if you want to get weirder and wackier, you can just glue different objects in the world together and make a giant Katamari ball that you could then push around the environment. Cork, what are you into about this game?
Well, I like all the systems, and like you were mentioning, but I think the biggest thing that I like about it is just how cohesive the station Talos 1 feels. Like, I think they've done a really good job of creating a space that feels plausible. Everything seems to kind of fit within the universe and the lore, which I'm not necessarily like the kind of person who reads every in-game book like in an Elder Scrolls game, but I do appreciate when, unlike like a Tomb Raider game where you go into a puzzle room and you realize this is like a one-shot deal. Like, you can't possibly open this door more than one time because by the act of putting this tablet here, this pendulum swings and smashes through the wall, all this other stuff. So like with Prey, it seems like the designers have built a space that is populated by an appropriate number of people. You could, like, they point out that if you really want to nerd out about it, you can go to like a security facility and you could find all the different tags for people, get those like beacons for them to figure out what happened to everyone before the alien infestation.
Track everybody down.
That kind of stuff. So I like that kind of world building because it seems like the station, they say it was approximately the same size as the Empire State Building. So it's like a substantial space to explore, but it isn't like, here's Tamriel, go nuts. You know what I mean? It seems like it's small enough to where it will have diversity, but it will also feel crafted and not overwhelming, but everything kind of fits together. I think that's what I appreciate about it.
And the surrounding world is really bizarre too. A little bit like Dishonored, even less so than Dishonored though. It's like an like an alt history situation here, right? So in this version of the world, JFK was not assassinated.
Well, it starts out, the alternate history is that a Russian satellite got conked out, so they decided to send some cosmonauts up there to check out what happened, and then those guys were like attacked by these alien mimics. So then Khrushchev approached.
It was a bunch of guitars. They just jumped on these.
What are these guitars doing out here?
I gotta shred out on this guitar real quick.
But the basic idea is just a way to get like, okay, there's an alien threat. Now the world needs to come together rather than be divided.
Well, what happens is
no, not so much.
Yeah, nice try, Juba.
Yeah,
well, hey,
if you look at the
sit down.
If you're not watching the stream, Juba looks very chastened right now.
Yeah, oh God.
He's beyond himself. He looks very embarrassed, bright red. As
all
he
his
should.
hair is falling out.
Yeah. Anyway, so the Khrushchev approaches Kennedy and says, "Hey, the space race is a lot of fun, but maybe we should work together." So what they do is they construct what they call a kletka, which is apparently Russian for cage, which is the only Russian word that I know now besides da. So
9.
doubled my vocabulary. So they built this like capsule around the original area and has the mimic in there. And then over the course of years, they've built like a space station, and that was subsequently privatized, and they built like another layer. So they've built this like place where people work around this nightmare of an alien species that they're able to kind of exploit and get this technology called neuromods, which they use to enhance humans' abilities because of the weird properties of the aliens.
And nothing goes wrong.
Nothing goes wrong ever.
Right.
So it's just a sim of keeping this TranStar space station upright, keeping everything safe and sanitary.
It's like before we tamed electricity and it would walk around and attack us.
I would totally play that game, actually.
That'd be
It
really
was just
good,
like,
actually.
that basically has like the gun on the wall that never gets fired. Just like some sort of dangerous containment unit that is shoddily held together. But
Screenwriting 101.
yeah.
My favorite piece of this weird alt history, and it was just a little one-off from the creative director, but he's like, yeah, I like this version of history. Louis C.K. was president.
I think he was joking.
I think he was.
I double-checked with him. He said, yeah, sure. In our history, Louis
I think
C.K.
he was
yeah,
just
sure,
president.
sure,
really.
That's
Sure, sir. Please stop talking about instruments and Louis C.K. We're
Yeah.
making a very sophisticated game here.
Yeah. Just for future reference, shrug, I guess, is not confirmation.
That's
see
all
that.
I need.
Louis C.K. is in the game for sure.
But I know some people were wondering, because around E3, Chris Avallone, who used to be at Obsidian, RPG Raider over there, he tweeted that he was working on this game. There's a lot of confusion about what exactly was going on with that. So he just did a little bit of consulting, apparently. Like they brought him in relatively early, and the way they described it is he patched up some possible theoretical loopholes in the storyline and then did a couple side quests, and they explained they're like, hey, they're big fans of him too. They wanted to bring him on board. Work with
he
him for a little
tweeted
bit.
about it at some point, right? When
Right,
the game was
yeah.
announced, he tweeted about it.
Yeah, I think he tweeted a picture of him
should
next
tell
to a
that
big
story.
face sign.
That's how you.
Yeah,
That
that's
should
a
be your
good
intro,
story.
right?
Yeah, it's really good.
Why didn't you start with that?
So, Cork, you had a feature go up on Friday.
Yes.
That was the 3 big mysteries
Yeah.
of Prey.
Yes.
Because the first trailer they unveiled at E3 was very confusing. It was all like a Groundhog Day style loop of things just
Edge of
getting worse.
Tomorrow.
I'm sorry, Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah, all right. So what do we know about the story and what don't we know?
Well, I think what we don't know is basically they're super cagey about some things that we almost asked as like a formality. So the main character's name is Morgan Yu,
Right.
Y-U. We were like, so do you hear Morgan's voice? And they're like, in a matter of speaking. We're like, what the hell does that mean? So yes, no, so maybe so. And
They were super cagey about Morgan to begin with. Like they wouldn't.
yeah,
say-
because that's the central
they wouldn't
mystery.
talk about their parents much. Like because your parents are mentioned in the game. I think they're famous scientists supposedly.
Maybe
One of them's Louis C.K.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
But yeah, so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Cork, but I was just saying like that was something they were super cagey about, and so you were saying that we straight up asked them like some pointed questions, and they wouldn't divulge the information.
Because one of the big mysteries is, who you are, why you're on the space station, and they want to very much leave that for players. But then even there's the bizarre stuff of repeating the days in that trailer, and so you asked the obvious clone question.
Yes, are you indeed a clone? And he was like, no, you're not a clone, but there is something going on. So I was like, oh.
So we're on the right
So maybe
track
there's
there.
like some time tunnel that you're falling through, and like old versions of you come, so you're not technically a clone, but there are multiple versions of you.
In
Who
one of the
knows?
trailers, you
alternate realities kind of thing.
Yeah, you
Bioshock.
certainly looks like you're talking to another version of yourself in one of those trailers.
Kind of a Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
It's a
kind of
lot
thing.
like that. These
Yeah.
are all common reference points. But I'm excited for this game. Like there's a survival layer coated on top, the trauma system. So you can get hurt in different ways. It reminds me a little bit of Metal Gear Solid 3,
Yeah.
Joe, where it's not really in your face, but every once in a while you're gonna have to pick off some leeches. And in this one, you're gonna have to go over to a 3D printer and print out a new med pack or some sort of healing apparatus
Get
to take care of
unburned.
yourself. Yeah, unburn yourself all over the place.
Well, that was another thing talking about systems is like they showed us this one section where there was like a locked door. It was kind of like cracked open or there's a crack in the wall or something. And you could see a med pack and it's like,
Yeah.
you can eventually go and find a key and open that door. But you also have this like burst power that he set up behind the med pack and the burst happened and the med pack then kind of flew up towards the door and it was close enough where you could finally grab it.
Drawing from his experience from Donald Duck in Math Magic Land.
Yeah, that's right.
Complicated bank shot.
So I was just like, oh, that's a cool little thing. It's like they develop these systems and then, game players have the opportunity to sort of exploit or use them however they want. And it sounds like their QA department is constantly like mentioning like, hey, I think this is a bug. I'm not supposed to do this. And they're like, no, you can do that if you want. It's an interesting way to solve that problem, but that's up to you.
Yeah, like,
Very Dishonored.
there was like one of the phantom enemies, I believe it was, like they lifted him into the air and it was like butting up against the ceiling. He stuck him there with a glue gun, and then eventually the glue wore off, and he just fell to his death. It's a game if you like kind of dicking around and doing weird stuff. Like it will support a lot of that.
Yeah, and we should mention the Poltergeist, going a little more in depth, because that was one of the coolest things of the demo. Is it feels like a very cool Ghostbusters game, right? Because as part of this demo, you walk into this room and you just see like a little object shake. And so you just have to sit there quietly waiting to see what else is going to shake in the environment before this thing just picks up a chair and chucks it at your head.
Right.
Yeah, and those
pops out of nowhere.
poltergeists aren't always hostile is kind of what they were saying. It's like sometimes they just want to screw with you, like make you freak out a little bit, and then they might attack out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and also the idea that mimics can become anything in the environment. So at any point, there could be this jump scare if you're just walking down a hallway and suddenly a trash can just jumps at your throat, and like it transforms back into the alien creature. They say like it's not going to be constant monster closets because of that. Like it's going to be this roller coaster. There's going to be areas where there's fewer mimics, areas with more. But you can see even in the gameplay demo, like the characters running around with a wrench, like banging on everything, just losing their mind.
Is this real?
To make sure that they're not all mimics. Yeah, it's a cool, weird thing, and it's nice to see, you know, AAA production behind something so bizarre, even if it is going like the safe route of using the name Prey. Joe, basically, it's a imagine Tacoma, but with less of that talky stuff and more weird physics playing around with different powers and guns.
Yeah, we don't even know if they will be talking.
Gameplay wise, it sounds like a lot of fun to me. It's just that the name was the one thing that really makes me raise my eyebrow. But
I don't know if the Prey IP is like that negative a thing, honestly. Like, I don't know if they're losing sales like you think they are, but
I think it adds to confusion for sure. It's certainly more of a hurdle than I expected. Just trying to talk about the game with the cover stories, people leaving those comments.
And I was surprised that they're not at all really acknowledging the first game lore wise in some way. I thought they were going to do that. Like
that would make it even worse, I think, honestly.
Well, now that I've seen it, yes, but like I thought before we went in that in some way they were going to acknowledge that, or some way a reboot, or the main character was going to be mentioned or something like that, but that's not the case.
I would be shocked if there's even an Easter egg. Like that.
No, they were saying that there's not going to be like,
okay.
They don't even want it. Like, yes, if they played the original and people are just kind of like, yeah, I think so. who knows how much of that is like putting on airs, you know, for our benefit. But
I wonder if
it doesn't seem like people are like, here's the deal. 10 years ago, I played Prey. And it's great to even be associated.
It's why I'm a
it.
game designer.
Like,
But hey, that's Prey. We have a whole month of features rolling out about it. But for now, let's get rid of this Ben Reeves dead weight.
Oh, thank God.
What? No, I don't want to go.
Sorry, you got to go. We're going to talk about Last Guardian with Suriel. So here we go.
Oh, what happens?
3. 1, 2, 3. All right, we got Suriel here.
Hi.
We're going to talk about The Last Guardian.
Yep.
Oh my God, I was up till 2 in the morning last night.
But you did finish.
I did finish it. I thought it was going to be an easy breezy. Joe, I think your numbers were a bit off for the length of that game as far as where I was, because I asked like, okay, this happened. Where am I at? You're like, oh, that's like 2/3, 3/4.
Yeah, I thought so.
I think that point was the halfway point, but that's not relevant to anybody except for me. Joe, what did you think of Last Guardian?
Man, so this is one of those games that is interesting to talk about because there is so much that is good to say about it, and there's so much about it that I enjoyed, and like frankly, you won't be able to find in other games anywhere else. Like, and I think that this is something that we've seen in previous games from this team, also this creator, where it's like Eco, Shadow of the Colossus, all of those for all of the things that they there are small ways in which those games stumble, I think is a fair thing to say, but there's something unique that comes through with them, and I think The Last Guardian is similar in that regard, but different in the thing that it does.
You are such a huge Team Eco fan. We should point out this technically isn't Team Eco anymore. It's called Gen Design.
Yeah, Gen Design, but creator
Ueda.
Yeah, Fumito Ueda.
He's still the director.
It's still sort of his creation.
Right.
Yeah.
But you are a giant fan of Eco and Shadow of the Colossus. I am as well. You came in a little bit cooler on Last Guardian than I expected. You gave it an 8. It's a great score, but
so where the problem comes in, first of all, I want to talk about what's good.
Okay.
And then we'll get to that.
Sure, absolutely.
Because what's unique and impressive about this game is that it sets out to basically form a bond between you as a player and this like fictional mythical creature. Eco is like, or Trico rather, is the name of this beast, and it's kind of like a griffin or a manticore or something, right? It's got
manticore. What's a manticore?
These are mythical like beasts that are combinations of other things.
It's like they don't have like a snake for a tail and like lion's head or whatever. And have wings.
Point being, it's kind of a bird, dog, cat thing.
It's like a platypus.
It's almost like you've been seeing trailers for it for almost 10 years now.
Yeah. Almost. Anyway, so the way it creates that bond is really interesting because like they just have so many lifelike animations and movements and behaviors. It's clear that the people on this team just spend hours watching their cats and dogs do things around the house,
amazing animation work with this game.
Yeah, that gives this creature a kind of like believability and life that makes it easy to connect. And Hanson, I know that you're a fan of Aggro in Shadow of the Colossus as a character in a sense.
Yeah, I got years of crap for saying that it's like one of the characters in video games that I felt the most attached to. And everyone's like, "Oh, it's a stupid horse. What are you talking about?" It's like, no, I feel a real bond with that dumb thing.
Yeah, and that is what they're expanding on with The Last Guardian. I think.
Yes.
Because aggro, you feel, I think, a bond with, and even Yorda and Eco, because you just spend a lot of time with that character. And just by nature of spending time, I think that there's a connection that forms.
And there's also like a helpfulness through the gameplay. Like it needs you, you need it. That's really important.
Yeah. I think with Trico they go above and beyond by doubling down on like a cooperative thing, like a back and forth, helping each other out, and all of that. So that is the amazing thing about The Last Guardian.
I feel like Trico is the most effective AI I've ever experienced in a game. You know, maybe there's more complex, maybe some Call of Duty bosses, technically more layers of code, but as far as like convincing you that this thing is real and making you care about it, it's the most effective use of intelligent AI in a game I've ever seen. Just constantly amazed by what it does. And there's certainly areas, which we'll get to later on, where it can be frustrating, but you spend at least the first half of that game like, can it do this? Is it do? Oh, okay, it is jumping up here. Oh my God. Like just trying to understand its movements and its animations and what it's capable of. And it all feels so loose and so natural. Like as far as making a believable living thing in a game, I feel like this game 100% nails it.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments where you don't think something will work because it's a video game. Like there was one part where there's a very small tunnel, and I figured, oh, it's way too big. Like in order for it to fit in this tunnel, it would have to squeeze in. Like I could see it fitting, but it would have to squeeze in really tightly. And they do a lot of those ones. It's like, yeah, he's gonna go in there and he's gonna like struggle a bit, but he's gonna make it in that tunnel because he would be able to make it in. There's not like, okay, I know that because this area is this size, he's gonna be able to not make it in, or like there's not the equivalent of like chest high cover or something like that.
And by the way, we're going to be on super strict lockdown for no spoilers for this game.
Oh, yeah.
So don't worry about it if you're listening. I don't even want to give away any specifics about anything. We're going to have the most vague conversation imaginable. I absolutely promise you that.
I mean, things like what Suriel just said. There are kinds of situations, but I don't think we're going to give away any puzzles or specifics.
Yeah, but so it felt more like Eco than I was expecting going through. It's very much an Eco structure with those moments of just, I mean, awesome in a literal sense, just awe-inspiring moments that Shadow would definitely bring about, where you just see the scale of these things, just like, oh my God. And it comes in this case of like, I've never interacted with an object this big, this intimately in a game before. Very intimately. But there's just those moments where just, you'll be up in this area and it'd be like, is Trico going to come up here? And you're calling it, Trico. And then it jumps up, and just seeing this big thing move so natural right next to you in a game, and knowing that you are fully capable of interacting with it at all times, including like really crazy cinematic stuff, and you still have full control of all that. I just feel like this game absolutely nails it.
Yeah. The ways in which the game is unscripted but feels scripted, I think is really impressive. Like I showed a friend this game the other day, and he had trouble believing that, like, no, I mean, this is just how Trico moves through the environment. This is just how it makes it jump. You can have it jump down and it'll jump back up again if you want it to, you know. And like the idea that this is not something that had just sort of been predetermined, but is just sort of a reactive way of like moving around the world.
And it gives the player so much control too. Like you're subtly triggering so many things, but it's always within your control without spoiling things. You know what I mean?
So this is what I want to get into. I started talking at the beginning about how like the things this game does well, and then it's fantastic. The reason I came in on this below, I think, where I'm at with Shadow of the Colossus and Eco, is that I think people assume that these games are going to have some control issues or something like that, because the way you control Wander in Shadow of the Colossus, there are just some unconventional controls in the
a lot of flailing.
Yeah, in the way that game functions, and the way that like you think you're grabbing on, but then you're frustrated because you can't move because it's sort of shimmying.
A lot of it can be summed up with jump is the triangle button for these games.
Jump is the triangle button is weird, and there's something about the way your character jumps and the way the cameras work. Sometimes it just make it hard to like actually do platforming,
but people don't
gauge timing.
But we've had 10 years, 11 years where people just haven't really talked about that, because it's people bring up Shadow Colossus or Ecos. Brilliant. Unbelievably brilliant. But if you go back and play those games, there are excruciatingly frustrating moments.
And that's not even what I'm talking about here. Because for both of those games, I feel like the more time you spend with them, the more familiar you get with them, or at least the more accepting you get of the sort of like idiosyncrasies, right? And this game has things on that level that I think I could have, that I think you can overlook because of the things it does well. For me, the reason it comes in below is there are other control things specifically related to Trico that it does not do well, and I think really makes the experience suffer. And that boils down to, for me, inconsistency in its abilities to follow a command. Mm-hmm. Because I think that I've seen the explanation for this, or I've seen people try to explain it as like, Trico's a living thing. Mm-hmm. It has a personality. You tell it to jump up, and maybe it's not always going to jump up. Does your cat jump up, or your dog, every time you tell it to do something?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, okay, I guess I get that if you want to talk about that as, you know, it's realistic in that respect, but that doesn't make it good for a game, and in fact makes it frustrating in this sense, because like, think about the way you spend time, or the way you experiment in a puzzle, right? So let's say you're in a room, not a real room, a hypothetical room in The Last Guardian, in which there's a ledge, and you're like, oh, I think that ledge is probably the way I get out of here. Trico, help me up that ledge. Nothing. Trico, jump up there. See, can you get me up there? Nothing.
It's just taking a big old dump in the corner.
Yeah. You try it a couple times, it doesn't do something, so then you're like, okay, well, it must be somewhere else. So then you spend 5 or 10 minutes like jumping around, like going in other things, backtracking to previous rooms, trying to see if you missed something. And it turns out you didn't miss anything. Trico just wasn't doing what you told it to.
Yeah, and there's a way to command it that's like there's different ways to command it. So there's one where you're on the thing and you press R1 in a direction, and he'll point and like, oh, go there. Mm-hmm. But there's a thing where if you hold down the R1 button, he'll like do like a standing running in place thing, and he'll point that way. And I throughout my entire time with the game, I wasn't sure if like there was a huge difference between those two commands, if like one of them was more forceful than the other, or if it was like having to, you know, work through those two different kinds of like control of that of Trico was kind of like a weird thing that
yeah, everything in this game feels very analog, if that makes sense. Everything's on a spectrum. It's not like if I do this specific way, this exact thing will happen. But when you're trying to solve, maybe this is a stupid analogy, we're trying to solve like digital puzzles. Like there's one solution to this.
There is a switch you have to stand on.
Right. Yeah. And there's just a mixing gray paint of analog thoughts and emotions and controls and actions and commands. That's this game in a nutshell.
Yeah. And that's why it gets frustrating. And I really wish that there had been, like, you could have used the Trico has personality excuse if you made it apparent that the reason Trico wasn't obeying you was because it was choosing not to, right? Like, let's say you say, Trico, jump up there, and it sort of gives you a strident or defiant sort of, you know, raises its neck and sort of just stares at you like, nope. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't respond. It doesn't do anything special. It just doesn't do anything.
Looks believable not doing anything, but doesn't technically do anything.
Right. So I think that is the biggest drop ball in this, because like, here's another example that is problematic, and that's like, there's a part where there is like a multi-jump sequence with a larger jump at the end. So I'm on Trico's back, jumping the whole way. I get to the final jump, and he's just sort of standing there looking up. And I'm like, go, 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 up there. And instead of doing the final jump, he turns around and does the whole sequence back to the starting point with me pointing back to where we should be the whole time.
Which then makes you think, well, wait a minute, am I not supposed to be going to that area yet?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And then we finally get back there, and on the first try, he makes that final jump like he was supposed to, or I don't know what pronoun to use for Trico, but point being, those kinds of situations just, like Ben said, lead to this fuzzy solution where even if you think you know what you're doing, and even if you're doing it right, it might not work.
Yeah, every area in this game I would walk into and just have to scour it, trying to figure out what is going on. And it did happen a handful of times where the first solution that I thought was a solution I would try, Trico was not really reacting, and then I move on and be like, oh no, I was right immediately. Okay, but this is not Naughty Dog-esque design. You aren't going to see the clear handholds pop out and know exactly where to go. It is a lot of confusion. I personally erred more on the side of maybe I wasn't as rushed in my playthrough of this game, trying to get it out for review or anything like that. But I erred more on the side of I'm okay relaxing and just setting a different tempo for this entire game experience. And Trico's not going to listen to me all the time. It's going to be a little bit strange. But if I just put that part of my brain to it's a living creature, I still absolutely loved it. Like there's still the situations where you say, Trico, jump over here. And he will start to crouch down and do something weird with his shoulders. And then it's just a minute of just watching this Trico thing's shoulders move. Like I think it's animating in a way where it's going to jump. And I understand gamers are going to be frustrated with that at times. But if you can just put it in the camp of this thing is fully AI, it is a weird pet, you have to live with its idiosyncrasies, it's not unbearable.
I will say that to speak to the sort of it's an animal, so it's not going to obey you. That only works if they have animals also have intuition. So there were a couple of moments, but they were very few where it would jump on a ledge that I hadn't even recognized as I can jump on that. So it's he would jump on one ledge and I'd be like, okay, where am I supposed to go? And he would already be on the next ledge. It's I guess this is where I'm supposed to go.
Yeah.
There were a couple moments like that I thought were pretty cool, but those paled in comparison to the number of times where I knew this thing was supposed to be where it's supposed to go and it wasn't listening. But
and it's not, for me, Hanson, it's not a question of being oh, well, I only have so much time. I don't like wasting 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. It's not a question of how much time it takes. It's a question of what the game is teaching you or not teaching you at the moment, or what you think you know versus, I don't know. To me, it's not a question of time loss. It's a question of just the game clearly communicating to you. Mm-hmm. And when it doesn't do that, it's frustrating. Whether it's 10 minutes or 5 seconds, you're sitting there playing, just being what's happening?
Yeah.
But to something else that you said that I appreciate is that it's not Uncharted. You're not going to get objective pointers telling you where to go, or even the hints that they do give you are vague and unhelpful most of the time, which I actually appreciated. That it's not you don't get to a point where you're just wanting to basically saying, I can't figure this out. Game, tell me how to do it. That doesn't happen. The game doesn't tell you how to do it.
Mm-mm. You have to text Serial and Joe constantly trying to figure out.
I got a panicked text from Ben last night, and then seconds later got the never mind. I figured it out.
God damn it! I'm an idiot. Oh, it's right
Which
there.
Which always happens as soon as you ask for help on those kinds of things. It's always when you figure it out.
Yeah. I think I think the thing that for me creates that frustration is that it sort of Trico not listening, you create situations where failure is not your fault.
Yeah.
So in something like Dark Souls, which also has a very specific kind of control scheme that a lot of people don't like, you can sort of learn to tame it in a way that's okay, I know I should have known that this attack was going to take a while to swing up and he killed me, so whatever. I died, it was kind of BS, but it was my fault. Yeah. With Trico, with those situations where you're where you read the environment correctly and Trico does not follow through, it creates situations where it's I did nothing wrong and still failed.
Yeah. I had a lot of frustration. By the way, I should point out, I really, really love this game.
Yeah, I mean,
we should point that out every 30 seconds, how amazing this game is at certain things. But I had so many frustrations, even independent of Trico. Well, I guess it's not completely independent, but climbing on it, jumping off it. There's just a lot of weird, quirky things the way you actually control the little boy character. And it's a complex thing to try and deal with this living beast. I understand that. But even independent of Trico then, there's situations that are reminiscent of climbing the last Colossus and Shadow of the Colossus. I'm just oh my God, I know what I need to do. And you're just torturing me, game. And this is taking forever. But it's not all Trico's fault. It's a quirky controlling game. There's going to be weird camera issues. It feels very much like a game from 2006.
It is interesting that if a game has somewhat of an artistic vision, how much of a pass it gets for things that sound like the worst kind of bullshit
artistic vision, though. Like, I think it nails that AI so well that
but
it
it doesn't
makes up
sound
for
like it does.
And
if like the veneer that covers it all is disobedience and not doing what you want it to do, I spend most of the time talking to people who don't listen to me. I don't want that to happen when I play a game. That sounds like frustrating and annoying.
Joe, what else do you have to say about Last Guardian, though?
Here,
that was a joke, by the way.
No.
I like your joke. That was good.
I get what Jeff's saying. I guess my response is it's not about getting a pass. I don't think we are giving it a pass.
No, I don't mean you specifically. I think people are like, oh, the genius of Ueda. He does it again. Nothing can stop him. There's nothing wrong with this game because you have this thing that was like hitting you emotionally, which I'm sure that it does, absolutely. And that when you play it, you feel like you're interacting with a living thing. But if that living thing is not standing on the freaking red button that you need it to so you can just get on with the day, no.
Yeah. And well, I gave the game an 8. And it's one of those, it's really weird because there are some games that are just, that's a good solid 8. And then there are games like The Last Guardian that's an 8 that is sort of an average of peaks and valleys in some way, you know, like there are moments in that game when it is just amazing that this piece of entertainment is conveying what it's conveying. And those are those moments of like artistic vision. And then there are the mechanical moments of like, yes, this is a piece of art, but it's also a game that you as a player need to interact with. And that's when it starts falling apart sometimes.
One thing that I consistently did not like was the camera and the way it worked. Like, I feel like they wanted to have a cinematic version of the camera not working, where instead of like when you get into a corner and like it gives you this extreme close up, it'll instead cut out and then cut back to a more appropriate camera angle.
Yeah, that happens.
So and when that happens over and over again, it just gets really frustrating.
This is like the fade to black super quick thing that it does all the time.
Yeah,
okay.
So like they didn't want to have a situation where it's like, oh, look at this glitchy game. Instead, it just kind of cuts away until it gets to a part where the camera isn't like.
And sometimes
bad.
like you're not even in a glitchy situation.
Yeah,
you just suddenly cut to black.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to mention about this that I thought was interesting is I went into it thinking that this game would probably be about as long as Eco. Like, yeah, maybe they can pull off 8 hours or so of, and I'm pretty sure that I finished it in closer to the like 12-hour mark.
It's definitely a game that's longer than you think.
There's 4 hours of that watching its shoulders flex.
If you added it up, you might not be far off from the pace of this game. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's a trophy in it for beating it under 15 hours. So I got that. So I know at least it was under 15. But there's also a trophy for beating it under 30.
And watching it take a big dump.
Right? Yeah. There's a gold trophy for
that. Joe and I both missed it, but there is a notification. It says something.
Yeah.
Something happened.
There's a moment like that game. It turns that into a moment in a way.
But what I wanted to say about the pacing that's strange, or not strange even, but like it's another one of those things where there are times when it feels like there are puzzles that you've done before, that this is going on a little too long, that it's not giving you something like, you know, you think about games like The Witness that just doesn't. Jonathan Blow is pretty adamant about like new puzzles that build on concepts rather than just like doing the same thing. And I feel like The Last Guardian has a lot of like.
It tries to do that, I think.
It tries in some ways, but there are still rooms that are just like basically
the puzzles don't iterate.
Yeah, it's basically just jump up here, go around the other side, and pull the switch so the gate opens so Trico can come.
And even beyond that, there's certain types of puzzles where it's like, well, I guess we're over and done with that. Like it's progressed story-wise past that, and then it'll rewind it and start giving you those puzzles again where it's like, well, no, like I don't think I should still be doing this type of stuff.
Yeah.
So as strange as that is sometimes, and as repetitive as that can feel, that's also weirdly it also builds into your relationship with Trico though too, because the more time you spend with Trico, the more you have that connection to build. And I feel like if you were to bail out of that game at 8 hours, you'd still like have a connection with it, but at the same time you wouldn't have that extra time that cements it in there. So I don't know that it's necessary, but it's also not useless. You know?
Yeah, I hear you. Something that really stood out to me, and I wonder how much of it is just this game being in development so long that they just have more time to put this kind of stuff in. It's definitely a Team Eco style game, very subtle, incredibly beautiful, really moving, but they tell you a little bit more than I was expecting in this game.
I was
Like,
wondering
it's a lot more expository. I don't want to say a lot more, but it is more expository, and there are more straight up like cutscenes in the game.
Yeah, not many. Don't expect too much of that.
Yeah.
But even little stuff like they will put subtitles on. I know like an Eco and the international version had subtitles and whatnot. It feels a little bit like that, where it's like, I don't need to know the exact words that the boy is saying, because they'll subtitle stuff just like the boy be saying, hey, I'll be right back, Trico, stay here. Like, I could have picked up on that.
Can you turn those off?
No option.
Some of those you don't need, but some of them I think are helpful just for, I mean, like you said, for explaining some of the story. You don't need, hey, Trico, I'll be right back. But maybe you do need, like, I awoke later not knowing where I was and blah, blah, blah. You know, like,
right. There's I wish we would have scaled it back a little bit. And then in that same front, they probably get a lot of feedback that the controls can be frustrating. And it seems like their solution is show a button prompt through so much of this game. Like, they throw the PlayStation 4 controller on that screen so much in the game, even to the point where it's like, give me 30 seconds to try before you tell me what to do, because they'll show you like some new mechanic and then right away it's a button prompt. Even when some of those mechanics can be emotional and I want to experience it on my own, it's just this tutorial button prompt in my face again, and there's no way to turn that off either.
Are you sure?
And speaking of options, did you guys figure out what the midnight mode is?
I think that's just for audio, just
Okay.
making it more flat, so the explosions are less loud, because there's explosions aplenty in this game.
Yeah, all day. Like,
yeah. I feel like this game would have been as monumental, this is probably simplistic to say, but as monumental as Eco Shadow of the Colossus if it would have come out in 2007 or whenever it was originally supposed to come out. Do you feel like the genius of this game now has an asterisk because it feels dated, or instead of ahead of its time, it feels behind its time now?
I don't know. I feel like the specific frustrations that I think Joe and I think you to some degree had with it, I think those would have been frustrating had it come out whenever. But I think that I think you are right in that it would have made more of an impact back then, because I think when Shadow of the Colossus and Eco came out, they didn't really have like really many reference points or points or like contemporaries. But now, like, you know, for a lot of the stuff that Eco did back then, we have series like Uncharted that focus on that same kind of element. Not saying like they're, you know, the same, because one thing this game doesn't have is any combat whatsoever, and I kind of like that about it, in that it's not just like climb and then shoot and climb and then shoot. It's like it's, you know, a lot more calming. But I think now there are more games that try to do some of the emotional stuff that this game does, but not in the same way this does. But I think it does lose some impact.
It's still unique enough, even all these years down the road, that it still stands out so much.
Yeah, I disagree. I think the things that it does well have barely been touched on in the years since Shadow of the Colossus, and that the things it does poorly were being done poorly in the games prior to it, for the most part. So, like, I mean, I don't think it would have been more impactful then than it is now. I think that it sort of exists in a vacuum, and you know.
Some of the stuff I'd be, you know, Ueda said that it didn't change design-wise when it made the jump from PS3 to PS4. There are certain things, though, in that game where I cannot imagine how they would have pulled it off on a PS3. Like, I think, you're not with me, Joe?
No.
You think they could have pulled off everything on PS3?
Mm-hmm.
I think.
I mean, I think visually there are some things that it benefits from the PS4 on.
Still chugs a little bit on PS4.
Yep. Frame rate's a little bit choppy here and there, but I mean, point being, I think all of it could have been done before, including key moments and like, if anything, I would say that the PS4 helps just like graphically and being able to like make the world seem real and make Trico sort of seem more realistic.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff Cork. You want to talk about Dead Rising 4?
Yeah, why not?
All right, let's get Surreal on out of here. Let's get somebody else in. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Hey,
Whoa.
Jeff Marchiafava.
I did it again.
You really did it. You have been playing some co-op stuff with Jeff Cork talking about Dead Rising 4.
No, that's
False.
a lie.
All right, you have been playing Dead Rising 4 completely siloed in your own little house of a little chamber.
Nope.
Have you
Keep
played
going.
any Dead Rising 4?
No, I don't know what that game is.
What a fun segment. Jeff,
blew
please
it.
talk about Dead Rising 4. How is it? Why has Capcom been so quiet about it?
Hey, get a load of this. I don't even know what are you talking
None
about?
of us have played this game, Hanson. I don't know.
Joe?
No, I haven't.
Maybe,
All right.
let's try and bring
Reader
in.
letters.
Let's get two different versions of Jeff Cork and Jeff Markiafabi here
Uglier
by
ones,
clapping on the count of
preferably.
3. Ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Hey, Dead Rising 4, how is it?
Yeah, let's talk about that
game.
game. So good.
What do you think?
I think it is a fun game.
What makes it fun?
You get to run around. You are a guy, and you can do stuff.
You feel a real
There's
bond to your
zombies in it.
chainsaw tractor?
Yeah.
Exactly. So here's the deal. I think Dead Rising is a super weird series that I like to talk about. And just because it's like from the very beginning, in my opinion, what it was, I enjoyed it in spite of everything that was wrong with it.
Sounds like a game we just talked about.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the first one, there are some people who like will live and die by Dead Rising 1. I am absolutely not one of them. I adore that game, but like I said, it is big. It is looking past things like the super punishing time element, which I think was a super bummer. I did not really like the Edge of Tomorrow, possibly Prey style of gameplay.
We're not
where
talking about that.
you
yet.
would die. You were kind of expected to die and restart, and whatever progress you've made and everything you'd learned about the way that the mall's kind of rhythms operated. Like, okay, if I want to save this guy, I need to make a beeline for him.
Yeah.
And pray that his AI doesn't just the bed and he like runs into a bunch of zombies and dies. So, I mean, I think the kernel of Dead Rising was always super exciting. And I remember when that game demo first came out, it was kind of, you've got 10 minutes in this mall, kill some zombies. And then when the game came out, it was like, oh, also there's a stopwatch that's going the whole time. And this Otis guy is going to call you and interrupt you and chastise you if you don't answer the phone while you're in the middle of fighting zombies. So anyway, so with each subsequent installment, I think that the game has kind of moved closer and closer to what I kind of always wanted from the first one. And again, there are some people, I completely recognize, there are some people that are like, I like this peculiar brand of like punishing difficulty and being forced to repeat the same loop over and over again. For those people, they can continue to go back and revisit the original Dead Rising. More power to you. But I think
we're 3 games removed. Those people just let it go.
at a certain point,
I know that's my Paper Mario argument, but outside of that, yeah.
yeah. So I think Dead Rising 4 is like, for the first time, it's become more and more relaxed with each subsequent installment. But with 4, it's finally gotten rid of like a watch. So Frank West is back, but he doesn't look at his watch at all. Like time, the element of time does not matter.
At the beginning of the game, he takes it off and steps on it.
He actually swallows it.
Oh my
like
Lord.
an homage to Pulp Fiction. It's very smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't have to worry about that. It's basically you do have objectives. There's like a campaign, which surprise, surprise, but that manifests itself as like a waypoint, which you could just choose to ignore if you want to just run around and kill zombies, do side missions, pick up collectibles. You're not constantly under the gun. You don't have a daughter who's going to be dying of a zombex withdrawals or anything like that.
So you're back in the mall?
Yeah,
It's the whole town.
it's the whole town. So basically, it's
The mall's bigger and better than ever.
Is
that true?
It's
yeah,
the
they
Willamette
rebuilt it or
Memorial
something, yeah.
Megaplex Mall. So it's basically
It's a
the
new
original.
mall.
Yeah, the original mall was destroyed.
Okay.
So it is a new mall, and it's one of those like the town remembers what happened. It's like people have panic rooms in their homes and in businesses and everything, which you can find and loot, and you can find like special treasures and stuff. So there's kind of like a sense of history in Willamette. Like
nice.
It's not just like, oh, incidentally something happened, but who cares? We don't like to comment. Like people are clearly upset about what happened. And they still have they've got the mall, which is much, much larger. It's broken into different themes, like a medieval part, like a Miami kind of theme, which is
I
a little
like that
weird.
they're very aware of what happened, but they still built a mall ideally constructed to have a just crazy playground experience with.
Have you ever gone to a mall before?
No, why?
Okay, there's a lot of stuff there typically.
Is that right?
If you go to a good one, yeah.
All right.
Okay, so Jeff,
Yeah.
how, if you're into the lore of Dead Rising,
Yes.
how much time has passed between the first game and this one?
16 years. So it's been 10 years in our human years,
Right.
but is for Frank West video game man years. Apparently their conversion is 16 years. Yeah.
I was always wondering what that math
Yeah,
was.
exactly. So he's a little older. He has a different voice actor who does a good job.
I hate when they do that.
A new voice actor.
You know, like every 10 years when your voice completely changes in
Yeah.
human years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, or if, I don't know. That's just a thing that bothers me when there doesn't seem to be a reason for it. See also Metal Gear Solid 5.
Mhm.
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah.
But Frank West is still wacky.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is I've kind of after the fact I wrote my review for the game. I liked it a lot. I've been kind of periodically popping in and out and seeing what other people have to say about it. And I think there's some weird blinders going on. Like people are saying like, well, this game is, I've seen people criticize it for being too wacky and other people saying that it's not wacky enough. And it's like that first game, you got that, the Adam the clown is very, it's a very weird scene, but one of the psychopaths, it's like you're fighting a clown. You know what I mean? There's an army of cultists that have set up shop in the original mall that would kidnap you and take off all your clothes.
What?
And that's kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
There's some convicts that are just driving around in a circle in the courtyard playing this terrible butt rap.
Oh.
So, yeah, I know. We'll talk later. So the first one was like wacky and weird, but also had some very serious moments. I think that the wackiness has certainly been amped up over the course of each installment with like the introduction of the combo weapons and that kind of thing. But for the most part, the tone isn't super strangely different from what it's always been.
And people have, weird nostalgia goggles for what they liked about those games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeff, what's the silliest thing you've done in this game?
Well, one thing that I didn't realize when I was running around, because you find all the costumes. I've never been a big Dead Rising fan because of the things that Cork has been talking about, the weird time limits and all those kind of things. So this game is finally the one that has finally clicked. But when you go around and you find costumes in the world, you have to put them on to add them to your inventory. And I didn't realize you could immediately click on them again to take them off and go back to whatever you were wearing before them. So there's just been huge stretches where, okay, I'm dressed as Morrigan. Is that it?
Yeah.
From Darkstalkers?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
just-
awesome.
Incidentally, a ton of Capcom fan service in this game.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm super into it.
Lots of ridiculous costumes like that where like, okay, I'm just wearing a casual women's business outfit now. And then I'll play like that for, like an hour and a half because I don't run into any other costumes or places to change or anything like that.
So this is a problem?
No.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so
He asked what the craziest
I like it. So
goofiest
like you're having
things-
these like serious story cutscenes and you're dressed like a bat woman character from a
Just
fighting
like
game
an
from the early
idiot, yeah.
90s.
Or you'll have a big, like dinosaur head costume on and your voice is kind of muffled because of it. It's very...
I miss
very
my
nice.
daughter.
Speaking of cutscenes, one of the things as I was reading your review, Jeff, that struck me as disappointing was that you're talking about how there's less focus on the psychopaths now and sort of
That is a super
which
bummer.
These were, you talk about the first game did a lot of weird things. That's the one that I've played the most of. But what stood out to me about both Dead Rising 1 and 2 are these like boss fights that even though they are kind of, like the chainsaw clown and stuff, that even though they are goofy in tone, they do say something about like, this is how a person is sort of changed or, becomes demented in this world of anything goes on.
Oh, yeah, like in the first one, too, there's the father and his sons who are like survivalist NRA types.
Are those the hardware store guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they've set up and they just are like plinking at everybody, including you, from like hidden positions.
Yeah. So I like, for me, those fights and like the stories behind those characters was a highlight. And that's not there anymore.
No, the psychopaths have been replaced by like all maniacs now. You have like someone that you interact with that is runs a podcast, and she'll give you these tips saying, hey, here's some activity going over in this place, these optional missions. And at first I was super excited because I was like, all right, here we go. Let's go see some psychopaths. And you get there and it's just like somewhat, as you get closer, she'll be like, hey, this guy in the school, he's doing some weird stuff. So I'm like, all right.
Who needs that podcast? We have Jeff reenacting on this podcast.
Exactly.
This is great.
Her voice is even worse. But you get there, and then it's just like, hey, it's a guy in a turkey mascot costume and some football players. There's no like introductory cutscene. There's no super funny dialogue or weird dialogue or anything.
And that was even in 3?
Yeah. There's some of that stuff, yeah. But I think it may have been a little less than in the past ones, but yeah, it was still an element, the psychopaths.
Okay.
And here it's just kind of like, hey, there's a guy, and then they don't drop any unique weapons. There's nothing particularly memorable about them at all, which is a super drag because they're missing a lot of opportunities. You can see kind of structurally there's the opportunity for that. Like there's a strange cult by a motel. There's like a Santa who's kind of gotten deranged. There's like a guy wearing like a pumpkin head costume, and you kill him, and then like the pumpkin head one, they're like, oh yeah, that guy was the drama teacher at the school.
Ain't that a tale?
It really makes you think. All right, he's dead now.
I killed Santa last night.
Yeah,
and there was just nothing.
I mean, you're killing a guy dressed as Santa. There should be some great fanfare for that, right?
Yeah. Well, and if
every child has wanted to do that.
If nothing else, the unique drops from the psychopaths served as like not only sort of trophies of the things that you've done, but they also like let you do fun thing like those chainsaws or something that you got from the clown. You know, like
absolutely.
They're a way to reward, almost like the way Saints Row 3 does this. The third does this also, where it's you finish a mission and you get some iconic unlock or something from it that kind of breaks the rules of the world a little bit, but the world isn't bound so closely by the rules that it matters. So you just lets you have a lot of fun, turns it into more of a playground.
And I don't know the decision behind that. It's easy to kind of go, well, you should have fixed it. But this one has a very easy fix where it's like the maniacs give them a combo weapon that you, up until that point, do not have access to. And then when you kill them, they drop the blueprint for that combo item that they just used against you. There you go, done. Because these things are hidden all over the place, so it's not like there's a lack of combo weapons to find.
What is the best combo weapon?
The best combo weapon? Oh boy, it's one of two. Functionally, there's one. I think it's called the Holy Terror, which is a combination assault rifle and computor. And it basically, this is just it's very boring considered like what you do. You just shoot. And it makes like a weird wormhole or something, and the enemies just disappear instantly, and they're gone. It just goes. Poof, poof.
Wait, they just get like loopered out of existence?
Yeah, it's a looper situation.
Oh my God.
So they get loopered. So, but it's kind of boring. I think like a more like there's a couple of them I really like. There's one, a magic wand that actually you do turn it magically, and you like wave it at zombies, and then they might turn into like a giant pile of presents or like a reindeer lawn ornament.
And people wrote in reviews this game wasn't wacky enough?
I guess.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeff, what's your favorite combo weapon?
There's another one that's you shoot present or like exploding ornaments at people.
Yeah.
That's really powerful, and you get it pretty early. And so whenever I run into like one of these boss characters that just has a huge ridiculous health bar, it's like dum 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 dum. And it's like they're exploding in different colors and stuff like that.
Oh, that's beautiful. You were saying something about a tractor this morning.
Yeah, if you combine a tractor and a wheelchair, you basically get something that's
really
almost
insensitive.
is reminiscent of that guy from Twisted Metal. I can't remember his name now.
Describe him.
Axel, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's somewhat similar to that, but you're seated because it's a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And it's got these like claw grinder things in the front, so you could just plow through, like the streets get super crowded. Just go through those without a problem. And then when you build up enough hits, kind of like with any other weapon, you get like a combo meter. Then you can use like a larger attack, and it'll like shoot a volley of missiles out. But it is extremely durable. A lot of the vehicles are kind of like a prestige kind of item where you can only use it for a relatively short period of time before they break down. But this thing lasts forever, and it does so much damage. It's super good.
Do you remember,
probably
more importantly,
yeah,
Twisted Metal 2's ending for Axel, where he wants his freedom from this crazy chain thing?
Jeff, let's clap and get a version of Ben Hansen that isn't talking about Twisted Metal.
Anyways, he rips his own arms off and then walks off into that. What else do you like about Dead Rising 4?
What else do I like about Dead Rising 4?
Is it better than 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Despite the character stuff.
Certainly more fun. I think, and I talk about this in the review, it's a very small thing, but just navigating around the town is so much easier because in the third one, you could chalk it up to, well, from a lore perspective, it makes sense, blah, blah, blah. There's a quarantine in place. Los Perdidos, they're trying to control the outbreak in a large area. So there were these blockades that were kind of plugging up the freeway to prevent people from traveling, which made it a drag if you're trying to get from point A to point B in a car. You would routinely have to get out, walk around some sandbags, hoist yourself up over this little, like, Jersey barrier.
Point where you want the car to go.
Exactly. Push the button. It is like a gas pedal, I guess, but it's on your finger. How does that work? But now you're driving around and there could be like, oh, this bus is crooked. You could see there's a military had a little checkpoint here, but I can just drive around it. And it's such a small thing, but it makes
is a
driving
big, seamless open world.
Yeah, it makes driving around so much more fun.
What about the Capcom fan service? So we have Morrigan. I assume Servbot heads are in there.
Oh yeah.
Okay. What else they
So
got?
you got
Blanca
Servbot heads.
head.
You have a pumpkin Servbot head.
All right.
Nice.
Yep.
What about Mega Man Blaster?
You can get a Mega Man Zero suit
Oh,
kind of thing. That's like an exosuit one.
see, Mega Man lives. Capcom hasn't forgotten about Mega Man.
What else could you possibly want, fans?
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds great.
Yeah, shut up, nerds. They say. Capcom. That's a direct quote.
That sounds really fun.
Is there a Dragon's Dogma unlockable?
Oh, sure, if you want or whatever.
Yeah, I guess.
There's a suit of armor or whatever.
This game is also available on PC.
It's
'cause of
rated
the whole
M.
Microsoft thing.
The ESRB said it's rated M.
Oh, good. Great detail. So
It's for mature.
but it's exciting because 3 was an Xbox One exclusive for a little window. This one, obviously, with the whole Microsoft games on PC once more, you can play on PC. So I might buy this thing.
On the
I've never gotten into a Dead Rising game. It seems like a good one.
This seems and I don't necessarily mean this in a. I regret saying this already.
Please.
It is dumbed down in a really fun way. So I think you're gonna have a great time.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hey, you want to get to some fantastic emails from the
Yeah,
community?
probably. Why not?
All right, here they come. And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. We got some great emails from the community that we're going to read off, and then we're going to choose our absolute favorite of the bunch, and we're going to ship them out the nicest thing anyone's ever seen. So, say if you have an email, send it into podcast@GameInformer.com. And we look forward to hearing feedback, thoughts, questions, news you want us to cover, anything about the games industry or anything under the sun. So podcast@GameInformer.com.
Hey, also, can we tell them to send emails to feedback@GameInformer.com?
What is that?
Too? It's to go in the magazine, which is like 10 times better than the podcast.
It is like the podcast email, except it's for the magazine. We have a subtle competition between the two email inboxes. So I recommend podcastinginfo.com, but if you want to be in print forever, immortalized on your shelf, feedback@GameInformer.com.
Joe and I
There you
say,
go.
don't do either.
Yeah.
We're jerks. No, you should do both.
What kind of stuff do you want at feedback@GameInformer.com?
Send us your thoughts on anything game related. We'll print it.
Oh, especially if you're stupid.
Yes. Those are the best.
Yeah.
I will write you a custom response.
Like telling us why one of our reviews is objectively wrong.
Yes. Those are great.
We love those.
Tell us why you love Trico, why you hate Trico, anything you want. So, first email, right out of the gate. Let's get to it here. It says, GI Crew. This is Charles from Brighton. That's in England, Cork. He says, GI Crew, I don't mean to be rude, but
Uh-oh, here it comes.
have you guys ever noticed how much you say the phrase right out of the gate? Because at least one of you says it in every single episode, and I can't be the only one to notice it.
That's called an Easter egg, Charlie.
I thought you might like to know that Clay Pewitt is credited as the inventor of the first enclosed starting gate as a means of preventing unfair advantage in horse racing. It
Now
made its
he's
first
just
appearance
bragging.
in 1939, and from there became a popular feature of that sport. Anyways, being the polite British gentleman that I am, I thought it best to make you all self-conscious about this and provide some other perfectly reasonable expressions as alternatives, such as, quote, I noticed immediately, or from the start, left out of the gate, or as we say in the UK, simply, bosh. Tally-ho, Charles from Brighton. I don't know if I can say I noticed immediately for the way that I use right out of the gate. It's
How do you use Bosch as right out of the gate?
I don't know, but I'm just going to start doing it instead of right out of the gate. Thanks, Charles. Andrew, JW Thompson, says, Hey, Ben and crew. You read my email on the air last week about the top 10 Game Informers. To start, thank you so much for reading my email. I had a blast hearing the reactions from it. However, I'm disappointed in myself for making it sound so mean. In my head, many of those things were positive, but when read on the air, they sounded awful.
Especially the JV one.
Well, he says, other than JV's part, I'm not a fan, as you can tell. And he says, in all seriousness, a big thank you to JV Gwaltney for allowing that email to be read on the air. I love that he embraces the hate mail as much as Hansen embraces the fan mail. Thank you, Andrew, for writing in such a horrific, mean email. This is, a lot of people wrote in about this. This is Demetrius, Esteban, Adam Smith, a lot of people from the Overblood group. They say, hello, GI crew. Why don't we get Game Informer's Game of the Year discussion in a video or podcast? I love that Giant Bomb week-long discussion episodes, and I don't understand how those goofballs can pull it off, but you guys can't. What gives? This is a good question that we feel like we fielded a couple times. It's complicated and different than the Giant Bomb one you might be used to because we have a larger staff. It's not an easy thing to podcast. We don't have enough mics for that.
Just hook all 16 of us up to our own separate microphones.
It'd be interesting, but also it becomes complicated because it goes in waves. It's not like we lock ourselves in a room and do everything from A to Z, which I feel like if we really push for it, we might be able to structure things around it. But with people being out of the office, like it's always this complicated spits and burts, as Reeves would say, right? Where it's like, okay, well, let's do the slam dunks this day on a Tuesday afternoon. Then Thursday, let's do this part. Then we're doing the top 10 dorks list somewhere in that mix as well. It's just like a weird scattershot. I know some people would like to do it. I know some people in the office, I'm sure, would hate it because, like, hey, we're just trying to make a list for the magazine. I don't want to treat this like as a reality TV show.
Yeah.
Joe, what do you think about that?
I don't know. I think it could be fun. I think at the same time, you'd also run the risk of maybe people not making arguments that they like. Maybe not all of the passion would come through or something if they're feeling self-conscious about, like, because it's enough. Like, if you're really behind a game and you put that out there, even like among our staff, even you can get raked across the coals sometimes just for, like having a different opinion, which of course everyone's entitled to, and we know that, but that doesn't stop us from, sort of having
Being
some
jerks.
fun with it from time to time.
We call it the cobblestone effect.
But the idea that you're also exposing yourself to a whole community for judgment, I think could also be...
I think it would change the dynamic. You're right. I feel like some people would talk more and some would talk less. And not that that's necessarily a bad thing. I just think there'd be a little bit of resistance to it. I think it's totally possible. I would love to do it some year. It's just, it would take a concerted effort. And also this year, we were talking about it even, and then it just came up like, hey, it turns out people are out of town. We need to do it this afternoon. Let's go. Yeah. And so at that point, it's tough. Also, Wade and I, video people, would have a tough time contributing when we're trying to man the cameras and the mics and shoving the mic down our own throat while we try and make a good point. Like, it just
I think that would actually improve it.
Yeah, it's a good point. Anyways, but thank you for writing in about it. I would love to do it at some point. Adam Smithley says, greetings and salutations. I'm interested in getting into VR, but I don't have much cash to invest in the Vive, Oculus, or PlayStation VR. Just curious if you can recommend any of the lower cost VR solutions like Samsung Gear VR. Are the games any good, or is it better just to hold out until I can afford the better option?
I have a Samsung phone, and as part of the thing, when I bought it from my carrier, they gave me the VR like in the mail later, and I had forgot about it at that point. And if you already have, I won't say that it is an inexpensive solution because it's built on the premise that you already own this device. Is probably, unless your carrier subsidizes it, it's hundreds and hundreds of dollars for this thing. But it's fine. Yeah, it's close enough. I think it's like probably about 75% of to a full on VR experience, which I don't know that additional 25% is worth spending all that extra money on.
I think the room scale is so important, though. I would never in a million years recommend people spend the money to get a VR anything at this point.
That's where I'm at. Is like, should I get this now or wait until I have the money? I'd say when you have the money, also don't do it because there's still too much that needs to be proven about like developers' ability to take advantage of this technology and actually like make games that are fun and that last and that are more than just like, oh, look, a dinosaur.
We just had this conversation yesterday where you said you might get it, and I think the conclusion we came to was you should throw that money at your wife and say, sorry for being married to me.
Much better use of your money. It is, I think, we talked about it yesterday. I am with you. It's telling that, granted, a lot of us have access to VR in the office here, but no one has felt compelled to, I need this at home. This is an experience I got to have. I don't think a single Game Informer editor has purchased this.
There was even their home. Yesterday, like our Slack channel, someone pointed out, hey, there's this game that you should check out, if you have time in VR to see what you think. I don't know how many of us could even be bothered to walk down a flight of stairs to do that right now because everyone is busy. I understand that, but it's not like, well, I'm on lunch. I want to check out this cool VR game. It's like,
but at the same time, I think especially room scale VR where you have full control over your hands, you can walk around, I think is something that is fascinating and you should experience. Just try and find somebody that has it, find some way of doing it. Take the weird Craigslist route. I know people are renting out their personal VR units in their homes.
That sounds terrible.
Just go into a stranger's home and cover your eyes and nothing can go wrong. So it's a tough thing because it's definitely worth experiencing, but don't do it.
Yeah, don't buy it.
And despite the skepticism too, like I think that down the road for VR, there could be some really cool things. Like there's like you say about it being something to experience. There are elements there that could be so cool when implemented fully, like in line with a more, I don't know, cohesive creative vision, things like that. VR could be really neat. I just don't think it's. I don't think.
So you're waiting for Resident Evil 7 to come out on PlayStation VR?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But we should mention Oculus Touch. The reviews went live. The whole handheld system for that thing. JV Waltney checked it out. He seemed to not be impressed by Oculus's lineup.
Yeah. His general vibe on it, I think, is that this is a lot like the Vive. Like functionally, it's still like it's these two controllers that you wave around. They detect the position of your hands in space. And the main difference being the Vive has been around for months and has had more time to build up games that support that. And this is still kind of new for the Rift.
The controllers feel great, though. I brought them over to Jeffem's desk specifically because I think they feel really cool in your hands. And I shoved it on his weird, dirty mitts. Mike from San Francisco writes in and says, "Hey, Game Informer. Hello. Last weekend I played through Infinite Warfare because any game capable of turning TAC into a blubbering mess sounds like a must-play. I thought the gameplay and characters were great, but I left wishing the settlement defense front and the backstory could be fleshed out a little bit more. My question to you is, are there any games out there you wish could have taken a deeper dive into the story beyond its regular conventions?"
Ooh. Yeah.
What game didn't give you enough?
The
Overwatch. Blew it.
Wait, The Witness. What do you want from The Witness that you didn't get? Or are you just intrigued?
I think and we talked about this when The Witness came out earlier this year, but I think the problem with The Witness is that it's not just this is a puzzle game, so it doesn't need a story. It's that it uses its environment and plants some seeds about a story that then that never happens. And I think it makes you wonder enough about, gee, what is this world? Why are things the way they are here? But then never gives you those answers or gives you so little in that regard that it really makes you wanting more, for me.
Were you satisfied by the amount Last Guardian explained?
Those games, I think, are different. I mean, in short, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think those games are different because so much of what's interesting about them is in the ambiguity of the story and in the sort of theories that tie one game to the next game and stuff like that. I mean, I think they give you enough to go off of and to speculate, and that's fun.
Yeah. Jeff, do you really want more from Overwatch?
Yes, I do.
You know, there's like comics starring McCree and stuff, and you can learn all about that backstory.
I know.
I don't want to read a comic book to learn a story of a video game.
Yeah.
I think a video game can tell a story.
I love the level of Overwatch where you kind of have vague ideas. It's one of those things where every once in a while you play with somebody, like a friend, and they're explaining, oh, you know, May was actually frozen in that Antarctica level. That's where she was frozen after all those years after her scientific expedition. It's like, what? Where did you learn all this stuff? I love May.
Why is she so willingly turn into a ice cube?
Yeah, exactly. She's got those superpowers. I
that.
love how, I don't know, vague it is and how I don't really know. And it just lets the fans really embrace those characters and make them their own.
I guess. I wrote about it recently that, like, there's so much about that game that I enjoy that I don't spend a lot of time thinking about what Blizzard could do. But they're so good at fleshing out their worlds that I wish there was an avenue for that in the game that, you know, incorporated gameplay and stuff like that.
Does that mean campaign?
Sure.
Okay.
I would like to see a larger Overwatch experience in the future at some point. Yeah.
What if in the same way you unlock whatever costumes or skins, but like sometimes, let's say you get a little cinematic that's just a backstory for a character.
Yeah, if they had taken those videos and that was, you know, something you got after an achievement, that would be, or just put them in a gallery in the damn game.
Isn't that the weirdest thing that you have to go to YouTube to watch those things? You can't do that within the game itself. Seems strange to me.
Also, Mike wants to know, vaguely related, what are your thoughts on the Assassin's Creed movie? Joe Juba, are you excited for that thing? You're a huge Assassin's Creed fan.
I am, but I think as any gamer who's gone to see a video game movie, at this point you just go in with rock bottom expectations and hope that you're impressed.
Uh-huh.
I mean, even a little bit, because I come out of any video game movie, I come out generally thinking that sucked, but you know, it was kind of cool they did blank.
And that's all you want from Assassin's Creed?
And like, as long as it clears that bar, I mean, I don't know that I'll be happy. But what I'm saying,
you'll never be happy.
I would love for this movie to go above and beyond that, but I don't know that I've ever seen a video game movie that has. Apart from, no, I haven't. I guess I've heard that Wreck-It Ralph not
Yes.
being even based on a specific movie, but does that.
You haven't seen Wreck-It Ralph?
No, I even own it.
Bert hasn't seen Lion King. We need to fill these animation gaps in the office. Anyways,
If you can see Jeff Court's expression right now, he's nodding and smiling at me, saying, "Good life choices."
Very handsome way.
Yeah.
Kurokin writes in and says, after watching the show and hearing Joe talk all about Final Fantasy 15, it got me wondering, how does the crew go about doing a review on such a massive game? I know not everything can be done in the short time everyone has with a game, and was just wondering how or what gets taken into account for the review and what doesn't. Thanks for reading. Keep up the amazing work. How do you know? Like in a game with so many side activities, when do reviewers say, good, I get the idea?
Yeah, I mean it's tricky and it varies from game to game. There's no hard opinion on it. I think we pretty much get to the end of the games that we review that can be beaten. You know, I mean not MMOs or things like that, but
We moved the payload in Overwatch, right?
It's an Overwatch reference.
Oh, okay.
Do you have like advice for people who are starting a game form or they're doing reviews? Do you say like, hey, do enough side activities to get the idea and understand the breadth of this game, but you don't have to 100% every single thing?
Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
Okay.
Is that you can't 100% every game that you review. But fortunately, I think what it boils down to is that you don't need to 100% every game to get a sense of what that offers.
Mhm.
You know. So I'm trying to think of a good example in that. I guess like in the case of Final Fantasy 15, there are a lot of side quests, but they also fall into certain categories, right? So there are side quests where Sid is upgrading some weapons for you, and side quests where you're doing hunts, and side quests where you're rescuing people with broken down cars. And none of those are functionally very different from the others. So as long as you sort of have a sense of just the kinds of activities, I don't know that doing every single one of them is important.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure. You still hot on 15? Play more of it? I
Yeah,
assume?
in fact, I'm actually enjoying it more than I was when we talked about it last week.
Wow.
I'm getting further in. The story's getting its hooks in me even more. And
Did you see the dress?
I did see the dress.
Ooh.
And
Wow.
you also, without getting too far into it, I've now gotten the things that make travel easier.
Okay.
So like one of the big frustrations early in the game is the fact that you can't really travel at night. You have to manually drive, and
Ignis
even,
is weird about it.
and
yeah.
even when you do, monsters pop up, so you can't really get to where you're going. There is an upgrade for the car later that allows you to like fast travel at night.
Interesting.
So you're having a good time with it when you first started, but you weren't like addicted to it. Bosh, is what you're saying.
Bosch,
Well
I
done.
enjoyed it, but was still curious about how the open world stuff would pan out. And
Okay.
I think it worked.
Right. So Chris here says, hey, y'all, big fan of the show. After years of being an Xbox only guy, sorry,
What?
I'm just laughing at Bosch. I recently bought a
Did
PS4.
you just now get
No,
that?
That's
been happening for a
I know,
minute.
it's just a slow simmer.
Okay.
I recently bought a PS4, mainly to play MLB The Show. What the hell?
Okay.
That is it.
No,
Typo?
Joe, we have to say what the hell about that.
What? People, it's ridiculous that someone would buy a console to play a baseball game, but if they want to play Dead Rising, that's fine.
It's inconceivable to me.
Okay.
Aside from the show, No Man's Sky, I guess, he says, and Last of Us, what are the must-buy PS4 games for someone new to the system? And in theory, the PlayStation family. So opens up the package containing his PS4. Bosch, what should he buy?
Last Guardian?
Yeah, I have a weird suggestion. Maybe it's just because I recently remembered how good this game is. Towerfall is so amazing. If you have friends and you want to play some good local multiplayer, don't
Yeah.
forget about Towerfall existing on PS4.
Yeah.
I think it also depends on just, again, the kind of games you enjoy.
Mhm.
I mean, any console offers this whole wide range of options, so it's hard to like single it out. For me, there's a couple of remasters that I'd recommend if these were games that you enjoyed on previous systems that are available on PS4, and that's the Odin Sphere remaster and Valkyria Chronicles on PS4.
Mm-hmm.
How's the Venn diagram going with the show and Valkyria Chronicles?
Hey,
We can't judge. There's an RBI reboot that was supposedly abysmal. You can look into that.
some people really like that though too.
Really?
I think so.
Reiner despised it.
Yeah.
Woof.
If you like, don't you go yet. I still have answers to that. If you like narrative games, check out Until Dawn.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah, good game.
If you like action games, go play Bloodborne
Or Uncharted 4.
or Uncharted 4.
There's a character in Untitled Dawn who's a jock too, just like you, Chris.
That's true. You
There
could
we
keep
go.
him alive, maybe. And if you like Metroid, go play Axiom Verge.
Or wait for Prey to come out.
Wow.
That'd be great.
Jeff,
Wow.
did you take notes on this?
I did.
You're
you,
amazing,
You
Jeff.
had really good
Someone
answers.
did their job.
I
really did it.
I echo everything Jeff said.
Riley Noonan from Tampa, Florida, says about Joe's review for Last Guardian. In reading the flaws, I began to reflect on my previous experiences with the team's games. I remember many a time having to draw Yorda away from flocks of birds, only to have her walk in circles before noticing I wanted to help her onto a block so we could proceed. It was very frustrating at the time, but I realized it did not dull my sense or love or awe for that game specifically and the series in general. I really appreciated Joe's words and want to commend his review for not making me lose hope in The Last Guardian or feel let down. He's still eager to play and meet Trico. I actually got a lot of feedback saying your review nailed it, Joe, so congratulations.
Well, thanks.
I disagree. Adam Betcher from Hugo, Minnesota says, hi, Game Informer crew. How is everyone today?
So good.
I'm pretty good.
A little hungry. But
Yeah, I'm hungry too. I haven't had lunch. Why don't I go get some lunch?
with
Jeff?
you?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's say we will.
Recently, there's a rumor that the Switch would not be releasing with Zelda Breath of the Wild, but would be releasing with the new Mario game that they showed off in that teaser. A lot of people I follow online and friends now have changed their minds from getting it day one to waiting to see how the launch goes. My question for you is this. Is there something about the Zelda series that make it a system seller that Mario games simply don't have? I would argue it's the other way around for the mass audience. But, I mean, certainly the more sophisticated, slightly more hardcore Nintendo gamer will appreciate the Zelda games. Maybe that'll be more alluring than some other Mario experience. We've certainly had more Mario experiences than Zelda console.
Did
right?
Twilight Princess launch with the Wii?
Yes, it did.
That was like a launch title.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You remember, like in retirement homes, like they wouldn't stop talking about that game. That was the big system seller.
Yeah, the fifth dungeon really was
Yeah.
a talking point for the old timers, I think.
Exactly.
It's interesting just because I feel like the idea of having that big flagship game at a console launch has diminished in the last few generations.
because they already get you, because they know that the prospect of having that game is enough to push you over the edge to buy the game at launch and whatever mediocre offerings it provides.
Yeah.
There are some people that are just buying potential, and the publisher could kind of punt on realizing that much later.
because there must be some sort of risk in releasing your big game with the system's launch, because your install base it is just going to be smaller. So if you can put it off a few months, wait until more people have that system in hand, that's more potential buyers that you've got.
You remember when they would give you a pack-in game also?
Yeah.
Like when you buy Super Nintendo,
Yeah.
and here's Super Mario World. It's like, why would we continue doing this?
Yeah.
And clearly they stopped.
Well,
The
Nintendo
end.
Land.
Nintendo Land, yeah.
So
That's almost the same.
Ryan Taft says, hey, friends.
Hello.
My site username is Game Informed, and I have a 3-part question for you folks, unrelated to his site username.
Are you going to sue me?
Here we go. Number 1, where? Number 2, the f***. Number 3, is Cuphead?
Good
Jeff
question.
Clark, can you answer that? Where the f*** is Cuphead?
Yeah, they're probably still working on that game.
There we go, Ryan. In theory, they say 2017.
Didn't they say that they were going to make actual levels for it now, though?
Yeah, I
Was
think
that
they even
the
showed
latest?
those off. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the reason behind the last time I heard about the big delay was that it went from being like a boss rush game to an actual platformer.
That seems like a wise move, because
Yeah.
no matter how many times they told people that it's a boss rush mode kind of game,
Yeah.
the overwhelming disappointment from everyone who wasn't paying attention to all those news sites I think it would not have doomed that game, but it would have hurt it.
Well, especially, I don't know that it would have hurt it if that game had remained an under the radar, like little indie gem, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that when they showed that game off, that art style got so many people interested that I think, yeah, they realized that like, oh crap, we have too many eyes on this, and if we release what it was, there's going to be a backlash.
Yeah.
You can't just, in 2017, have a game just be a Bosch mode. I agree. They have to add those platforming sections.
And I'm sure
Anyways.
that the reaction to No Man's Sky was kind of like a wake-up call to them as well.
Taylor from
Yes, sir.
Vermontville, Michigan, says, Dear Ben Hansen, I would like you to close your eyes and pretend you don't exist. That's,
All right.
That's how I fall asleep every night, actually.
That's how I work through the day.
Who do you think would be the host of the GI podcast in your stead, and how well do you think they'd be doing it? think about this a lot. I like to imagine a world where Andy McNamara hosts it. I think that'd be interesting. Other than that, everyone would just do an abysmal job. No, I really think about it. Like maybe it'd be fun to have like a whole month where we just cycle through different editors, guest hosting the podcast, and they just go all in on whatever weird angle they want to take it. And it's just this dynamic, bizarre thing.
I'd get rid of this desk.
Yeah, what would you do?
Just look at our laps.
Just 4 chairs and wiggly legs sitting here.
Here we are.
Oh, you don't want to see our bellies.
Just constantly wiping my palms dry and my legs.
Nice. Crossing your legs like Sharon Stone.
Well, let's go to just some imagination land. If you guys would like to join me in just closing our eyes and imagine Joe Juba as the host, we can all just sit back and Joe, take it away.
Come back to me.
Okay, great. Let's all just close our eyes and just imagine what it'd be like if Geoff Marchiafava was kicking off the new version. Okay,
I got it.
Okay,
I got it.
And here we go.
Let's see.
Great.
No, I'm ready. Shut up. You ruined it. That's how I start. I do kind of like a mumbling thing.
Yeah, mumblecore.
Welcome to the Raymond Former podcast. Tonight's topics include Raymond for laymen, joints, who needs them, and why aren't more people watching this?
Raymond?
Yeah, Raymond Former.
Is that like a
Raymond
ramen?
and Game Informer, Raymond Former.
Are you talking about ramen?
Raymond the game.
Your accent makes it impossible to understand what's going on.
What the hell are you talking about?
Everybody loves Raymond?
Ramen Origins? This is the worst podcast. All right, let's close our eyes. Just imagine that nightmare didn't exist.
Great.
Jeff Cork, take it away.
What's up, guys? Welcome to my YouTube channel. We're going to talk about games and video games.
And you wear this as an audio
What's up?
podcast as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, his eyes were
when?
closed when he did it, so obviously he doesn't.
I wrote the notes in my eyes. It's okay.
Joe Juba, please top that.
Okay, here we go. This is Wolfman Joe Juba hosting the Game Informer Show, where all we talk about is 16-bit Final Fantasy games. And today my guest is Daniel Tack, and we are spending our 4th consecutive week arguing about Final Fantasy 4 versus 6.
Click.
There we go.
Ow! I like the wordplay at Wolfman Joe Juba. It's good.
That's an old podcast joke from the Helgeson days.
Yeah, I remember that stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you guys like for email of the week?
I like the one where the guy said, "You're gone."
That was good.
Joking.
Yeah.
I like that one too. It had us use our imagination.
Although I would say at the same time that like Bosch, the letters were really good and strong.
That's true. And then they kind of tapered out from there. Yeah, unfortunately, that guy's from England. I'll give it to Crazy Dream About the Podcast guy, who wishes that I never existed.
I wish that he would have answered his own question, though. Who does he think should take over?
Yeah.
Be honest.
Let us know, Taylor.
It's not a beauty pageant either. Just keep that in mind.
Although your beard's looking very, very trimmed these days. Taylor from Vermontville, we'll send you out something real nice. Before we go, this morning Ben Reeves came up to me in that lovable way only
blank
he
sheet
can.
of paper, by the way. That last one, it's absolutely blank.
Sometimes you need an extra sheet to shuffle.
Yeah, you never know.
Anyways, and Reeves said, "Why don't you do that thing on the podcast anymore? We used to do where you plug something on the site." It's something we used to do, and we've slowly just grown out of the habit, but it was something kind of fun. So, Cork, what have you put on the site, or what's something you'd recommend people check out on GameInformer.com?
Resource not found. No, I'm just kidding. I think Serial did a really good roundup on Sombra and kind of what's going ahead with that character.
Okay.
He played around with her on the public test servers we're talking about Overwatch, of
That's
course. Right. And it wasn't Sombra. I'm sorry. It's
I was gonna say
it's
wrong. Symmetra.
Symmetra. Oh God, the other S word.
Okay.
The other character that I have absolutely no interest in playing. But after reading Surreal. Is that his name? Surreal?
No, it's
Sombra?
Surreal.
Surreal. After reading his things, I was kind of like, okay, these balancing patches and tweaks kind of make her a little more interesting.
This is why we don't do this anymore.
I don't read any of this stuff.
I don't even remember my coworker's name.
Yeah.
That Symmetra stuff looks like a nightmare. I saw like some video of it and just the weird shield bubbles everywhere. I think it's going to really change the way that game's played.
Yeah, but I think that Surreal does a really good job of breaking it down, and I would recommend reading that.
Do you think Surreal's a competitive guy because he plays so many competitive games and understands like esports so well? Do you think like in his core of cores, he just wants to win at everything?
I don't know. I'll have to ask him sometime. He does play his games with it's like an array of buttons instead of a joystick. Is the worst.
Only the loudest.
I thought he was typing out Morse code at his desk. That's all he hears.
Kill me immediately.
Oh, wow.
Geoff, what do you recommend?
I am a big fan of Miller's Column that he does every other Friday.
Top of the tater.
He breaks down all the best potatoes.
Top of the table.
A new recipe every other week. No, but yeah, I enjoy playing board games, and it's a kind of offshoot that our video game player, reader, viewers might enjoy. So
Board Game Informer. Check it out.
Yep.
Joe Juba, what do you got?
Well, I'm going to take this. I mean, this is something I contributed to, so it's a little bit selfish in that regard.
Shameless.
There
With
we go.
A little bit.
With one exception, our Mass Effect Andromeda hub is done. Like I feel like it's one of the more crowded cover story hubs that we've done. There was a lot of stuff we got up in there. I put up some stuff. Kim Wallace and Ben Hansen.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of stuff in there that, I mean, still a lot of the details in there still haven't gone wide in the sense of like they haven't been promoting all of these in other videos or whatever. So still lots of good stuff there.
Yeah, I think I tweeted out that it's like there is not a better one-stop shop to learn about the next Mass Effect than that hub. And then someone said, "That's not true. You got you're a third-party source. You just took it from other places." It's like, well, technically we took it from BioWare, I guess, because we went there and asked a bunch of questions. But that guy had a good point. So yeah, I do recommend it, and maybe there'll be more Mass Effect coming up soon. But hey, on that note, I would recommend the Prey Hub. Maybe we didn't do the best job selling it, but I think that game is really cool and really interesting, and I don't know how to get people to pay attention to it. Joe, back when you did like the BioShock cover story, did you write that?
Mm-hmm.
How do you get people to pay attention to a cool thing like that?
I feel like if you're a good person and you're talented, it just comes through,
eloquent,
and draws people into it.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, well, hey, we're gonna cover everything that happened at PSX and the Video Game Awards in the next segment. So a lot of fun, good games to break down, new Zelda footage, Last of Us Part 2, tons of stuff. So stay tuned for that. And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I got a hot table here. We got Serial Vasquez returning.
Hi.
Not talking about Last Guardian at all.
Nope.
Joined by Andrew Reiner.
Hello.
And
how you doing?
McNamara.
Hello.
Oh my gosh. So you guys were out in California experiencing the best and brightest and newest things that video games had to offer.
That's right.
So you were at the Game Awards, the Geoff Keighley Award thingies, and then PSX, PlayStation's big convention.
Correct. That's correct. You nailed it.
Wow,
okay.
I was not at
you did your
Game Awards,
homework,
but I was at PSX.
Okay. Thank you, Serial, for explaining that. Okay. So the Game Awards, quickly. I feel like this is maybe the 6th year in a row where we've broken down these Game Awards on this podcast. I'm always fascinated by them. Geoff Keighley went independent vaguely a couple years ago and tried to class it up a little bit. Right, Andy?
Yeah, he puts them on, right? I mean, obviously he sells sponsorship to video game companies and others. But he's putting them on there. And in Game Informer, I've supported. I think awards are important for the game industry. I think the game show is important. I know everyone's argued about whether it's good or bad, and I'm not here to tell you what you think about what the awards are or aren't. But what I will say with confidence is I think that they're important, and I think Geoff has worked very hard to try to make video games be an important part of entertainment, and having a big award show I think is a part of that story, right?
It's easy to all over these things and to say like, oh, you have to have it be sponsored. It's like, yeah, it's a big production. It's a hell of a production.
He has an unenviable task of bringing all of these different crowds that are into video games together and for one show, and I don't envy him.
Yeah, it's tough, and so I think it's done a good job. I think he's brought it more. I think he's brought a little bit more conversational over the last couple of years, which I like. I think we're getting a chance for developers to go up on stage and speak. Some would argue they want more awards, less kind of previews,
less music,
less entertainment. But I think he's trying to do whatever he can to get people to be engaged and want to be a part of it. And I mean, when I was there, the stage is impressive. You know what I mean? I think the whole production is insane. I'm so glad I don't have to put on a production like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it looks like a lot of work. And so I think they're important. And to point out too, Game Informer has been someone who's voted for nominees and put in votes for who wins. We've been involved with the Game Awards for a long time because we want to help make sure that good games are nominated, right? And we're not the only ones. There's a lot of other outlets that are involved.
Is it just press? Who is voting these days?
I don't have the whole list in front of me or anything like that. I'm not entirely prepared for that question, but there is a big chunk that is press. Right, but he has his own board of directors and other people that all kind of like give input, and then of course they do like voting online and things like that to kind of put the whole thing together. And I put in the votes that we know, right? The trending gamer, Game Informer does not select the I leave that one blank, right? Kind of thing. But I think it's good to talk about those awards, and I try to give feedback to Geoff about like, hey, this award's kind of confusing or this or that. I mean, he ultimately runs his own show, but I try to give him some feedback from us.
Games for Change is always a confusing one. But as far as like big stuff to come out of it, new Death Stranding trailer.
Yeah, crazy.
That Kojima love letter. I am a Kojima fan. I feel like Andy has given us crap for being big Kojima fans. I cannot imagine the amount of crap that, in theory, you would give to Keighley for how much he is bending over backwards to say how much he appreciates the relationship with Kojima. It is a lot.
I mean, they have a good relationship. You know what I mean, where they can promote each other, right? And I think that's good. Whatever. Andy,
you're so diplomatic.
Keighley started crying at the beginning.
I know.
It was a lot.
My favorite.
I got uncomfortable. I was about ready to leave. I was like, "This is getting too real." Like, run to him, Kojima.
Yeah.
Go to him.
I mean, definitely there was moments you're like, are they going to kiss? But I think John Drake tweeted that the goal of your life is to try to find someone who will look at you like Geoff Keighley was at Kojima.
What was your face looking like during that Death Stranding trailer?
I just so everyone knows, because it's kind of inside baseball, I guess somebody, I certainly respect Kojima and the work he's done, and I really used to love the Metal Gear games. I feel like in the last few years, decade, and they've just gotten out of control and gotten like crazy insane. So he's bringing this up because he's like, I mean, obviously those trailers are insane, right? Yeah. They are insane, right? And people running them at the same time, and the baby teleports from one guy to the other, and just all the kind of.
I like to teleport babies to this.
I mean, it is all kinds of insane. I mean, you got to give him credit though. It's memorable. I certainly have not seen some of this stuff other places, so I mean, there's that. I think it just comes down to, for me, I like Kojima best when he came up with weird stuff, and there were like people who worked with him who would go like, maybe we edit that down, maybe we make that a little shorter, maybe got to the point a little quicker, and he would go, oh yeah, it's a good idea, instead of going like that? Yeah, like
police knots, I think. Yeah.
Versus like kind of just put it all out there, right? And
they did announce, as far as like facts, we learned outside of like Del Toro and Mads Mikkelsen, all these people are in the trailer and whatnot, and it's insane dark baby liquid with World War II planes. But anyways, they announced that they're using the same engine as Horizon Zero Dawn.
Correct.
Yeah. The Decima engine.
I don't even know they had a name for it.
Yeah,
that's cool.
They have a name for it now
within Sony. That's an interesting choice. I don't think Guerrilla's outsourced their engine before. I think that's new for them, as far as I can tell.
They might have done. Who did Until Dawn? Supermassive, right?
Yeah.
I think they might have. That might be the same engine.
Oh, interesting.
I might be wrong.
But then the other big reveal was new Zelda footage.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild stuff. A strange Let's Play video with Bill Trennan over at Nintendo and Nate Bildorf over there as well.
Yeah.
Checking out the game. Anything stand out to you guys from that gameplay?
Well, I think it was the tease at the end of the trailer before that where it was Princess Zelda, maybe, or Sheik.
Probably.
Someone,
it's
a
Zelda,
female character
and she's
that
wearing
looked
kind of like the same blue gown.
Yeah, it almost teased like maybe co-op or something.
Just because you look so similar to
Link? And then they were both sitting on the couch. I was like, are they going to do what I think they're going to do? And they didn't. So
also no Switch. I was expecting them to at least be playing on the Switch. Nothing.
Yeah.
Not a peep.
Yeah, it's not real.
I think we're all excited about Zelda. We all know that Nintendo's going to tell us as little about Zelda as possible until there is just Zelda is here. And so, I think I always love the Zelda games.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm excited.
PSX opens the big press conference. This is what we see. I want to get into your hands-on experiences in a bit. From our vantage point, we're watching this keynote. Opens up. It's a lady. Looks like some sort of Middle Eastern country. And she's slowly walking through the streets. And it goes on and on and on. Eventually it's revealed it is, I guess, technically the Uncharted 4 DLC, which is standalone. So
the title does not have 4 in the title. It is Uncharted: The Lost Legacy,
which is interesting. Was Left Behind standalone? I think it might have been.
It was.
Okay.
This game is going to be longer than Left Behind, but not as long as Uncharted 4. So it started as DLC.
Okay.
And they realized they needed something bigger than your traditional DLC to tell the story they want to. So they're calling it like an expansion.
I like it. I like the approach.
So more Uncharted, that's never a bad thing, right? Especially it's still Naughty Dog doing it.
Starring Chloe, who we didn't see in Uncharted 4 at all. So it's nice to have a fan
I was wondering
what
was up with her. So she's back. And then Nadine Ross, one of the rival bounty hunters. It seems like they're going to be working in tandem in this one.
Do you have a sense of where it is in the timeline?
It's after Uncharted 4. So it is after the events of Uncharted 4, and it's mostly going to be set in India.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, that seems cool. That's exciting. That wasn't the only Naughty Dog announcement. Let's just jump right to the biggie.
So they started the press conference with one.
Yeah. And then
ended one with one, too.
Last of Us Part 2 announced. And they even, in the setup, said like, hey, this is early, everybody. But the team was excited. They wanted to show it off. And there is a cinematic trailer with a 19-year-old Ellie playing guitar, looking bloody.
Thing going on with her hands.
Yeah, and then Joel walks in and they talk a little bit, and that's it. And then the crowd lost its mind. Were you guys in the room for that?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Well, no, we were outside a coffee shop.
Yeah.
The perfect place for
we were trying to cover it from our hotel, and our internet went out, so we had to watch it on his phone.
Yeah, it was like 9:50. Like, all right, let's do it. It's like Wi-Fi's going. Like 10 hits. Gone. Like our entire internet is dead. I'm like on the phone with people from the hotel saying like, what's going on? It's like, reset the router? I don't know. And yeah, so we had to leave early and make our way to the actual event.
That's almost as riveting as The Last of Us Part 2 trailer. Now, Reiner, I don't know if you caught this. It was a subtle detail, but the game was shown at PSX and not at the Game Awards, which I believe we made a $5 bet about.
I owe you $5.
Thank you for admitting defeat immediately.
Let's just go all inside baseball on this one. Behind the scenes at Game Informer.
I do want to go behind the scenes with your experience, Andy, because you had a weird one, because then later that day, you hosted a panel all about Last of Us Part 2 with Neil Druckmann and the two actors.
Yeah, Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker. Yes.
How did that come about? What was that like?
Well, I actually I think on Wednesday before I got a call that asked me if I wanted to moderate the panel for the Uncharted game.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, yeah, that'd be fun. I've played a lot of Naughty Dogs in my life. Let's put games in my life. So I was excited, and it was a unique opportunity. And then I just happened to get in Thursday morning for the Game Awards. Then they gave me a call, and they're like, well, we changed our mind. We want you to maybe moderate. Would you be interested in moderating a different game? And I was like, sure, whatever, let me know. And then they were like, it's what you think it is. And I'm like, it's what I think it is. And
Jack and Daxter.
And they're like, yeah. And I was like, whoa, okay, crazy. And I brought up actually that Monday we had been making bets, at our office about if it would or would not be there. And I was like, well, I'm 10 minutes away from Naughty Dog. Can I swing by and talk with the team and prepare for this thing? So I got a chance to go talk to the Neil on Thursday, kind of get the download to be ready. So it was kind of fun because when the trailer came on, I knew what trailer it was. Do you know what I mean? And so I was like, when are they going to figure out? When is the crowd going to know what this is? Because
Firefly icon.
Yeah, so I was just kind of sitting there and like, okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, there we go. And I was like, and it was, man. I did not realize that many people would know the Firefly.
I was also amazed.
Yeah, like they was like boom, and the crowd went nuts.
This is like the Sonyest of the Sony fanboys in that entire theater, though.
Yeah.
And they were clued in.
They were clued in, yeah, and they knew immediately, and were excited. And I thought the trailer was great, and so that was kind of the basis. And then just the panel was a lot of fun. I had a good time there.
Is it nerve-wracking being up on stage like that?
I think they get a little bit of butterflies, but I was in a sounds stupid. I was in a band for a long time. Reiner knows about this. Eventually, you kind of like, I'm either going to screw this up or I'm going to do it well. Same result, right? You're still stuck up there, kind of thing. So I made lots of mistakes in a band. I did a lot of stupid things in a band. You get used to just like, if I'm going to do it in front of one, I'm going to do it in front of 3,000, 100,000, whatever it is, it just starts to kind of not matter. So all those years of being in a band definitely prepared me for just not really care. I mean, I care. It's not that I don't care, but it's like you just don't focus on that. If you focus on that, I think you'd go crazy. But just don't focus on that.
So did you get a better sense of how early this thing is? In production? Like, where is this at?
Well, it's Naughty Dog. They don't like answering questions, right? And so, and to be fair, that it's because they're working on it. I mean, I think, if I had to guess, I don't think it's a 2017 title, right? So I mean, that puts it in 2018. But I think they want to try to finish what they're doing and tell the story they want to tell. I think, the last game did so well for them, and Uncharted doing well for them. I think, they're kind of. This is my opinion, right? I feel like they're kind of. They're a very important part of the PlayStation success, right? And so I think they get the time to do what they want to do well. And the process for a game like this that's so narrative driven, I mean, they've got all these ideas out there. I mean, that was kind of one of the stories I told around here was that I ran into Neil just after Uncharted 4 came out at E3, and I was like, okay, it's great to see you, Neil, but what are you doing here? You know what I mean? Like, you should be on vacation. You should be you guys like worked your tail off to finish Uncharted 4. What are you doing here? He goes like, yeah, I know, but we just got really excited. We were like working on something new, and we just went into the office and just started work on them. So when I went on Thursday, I was like, so what were you working on that when I asked you at E3? He's like, oh, this is what he's like, like we'd been waiting to finish Uncharted 4, and they love Uncharted 4, and it's not to, but they just had all these ideas that were already in motion that they'd already been talking about for, Last of Us Part 2. And then it just kind of like, once they had free time, it was like, dive in, get working on it, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of excitement from them and everybody there about where to take this. And I thought it was really interesting, just talking to him about it, not on a giant stage, just that, they went through all the stuff. They said, should there be a sequel? Like, should there be a sequel? Like, should it just be Last of Us done? We told the story. There's no more. And I think, I saw people like making fun of the name Part 2. But I really got the sense from them, and it was important that it was Part 2 because they didn't want to feel like it was ignoring what they did, ignoring what made Last of Us great. They're trying to be additive, right, and not make it worse because there's a sequel, or make it, I know that sounds kind of stupid to say. I mean, no one wants to make this something worse, but I mean, I think they want to respect what they did and respect that people wanted it to be its own game, or that people even said, you could make a Last of Us with two different people in a different part of the world being the Last of Us, like another tale that's kind of a horror, kind of end to humanity kind of thing. There's a lot of things you could have done with that franchise, but I think they chose this because that's what attracted them most, right? And like they liked the story they could tell, and even Neil told me stories of, I was like, so what do you do with the story here? And he's like, we come up with an idea, and like you go into Evan's office, he's one of the co-presidents of Naughty Dog, or Christoph's office, and go like, here's my idea, and it's like, okay, not that idea. You know what I mean? And like, they kind of, it's all iterative, from everyone being involved and like kind of bouncing around because they're looking for something that they want to be impactful. Right?
I was amazed that Ashley Johnson said that Neil pitched Last of Us Part 2 alongside the Left Behind DLC.
He said he gave her the scene over 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like this has been, I got the impression that it started ramping up and then there's the Uncharted 4 detour, finished that off, and now we're getting back to
He didn't stop working on Last of Us. That's what the impression I got is he's kept that burner alive.
Not that the entire Naughty Dog workforce. No, like I'm sure it was just small pre-production.
Probably him
off to the
and
side.
Bruce and a couple other people were probably like, go to lunch and discuss something. Like, I'm going to punch out the scene, send it to Ashley, see what she thinks about this. Could she do something like this?
Well, you mentioned Bruce. That's the interesting part. So he was the game director for Uncharted 2, Last of Us. He is not going to be directing it this time around.
Don't know that yet.
So
he's off on vacation right now. Neil is co-writing with Hadley. She's from Westworld, from HBO.
Haley Gross, isn't it?
Yeah, he's working with her on it. But Bruce might come in later. They said he'll be coming in later, but he might. Bruce has always been more on the gameplay end.
Right, for sure.
So Uncharted, he was kind of the gameplay guy. Last of Us 1, he was kind of the gameplay guy. They shared co-director duties. That might end up being the case still. We'll see. I know they're kind of hinting at that not being it.
I hope he
whereas Neil tweeted, like, she's writing this with me. Mm-hmm. He didn't make any mention of Bruce at all. But we'll see.
Right.
We'll see what role he has in the end.
But I think she'd worked on Uncharted 4 before. I mean, I think that she'd done work with Naughty Dogs before, and I think it's important to note too that, you know, kind of to my previous conversation. I mean, even if Bruce comes in and is working on another project, I mean, they all have feedback on their games.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? Like the whole kennel. Right, you know, has
You're big on nostalgia.
you know, is there, you know what I mean, and can give feedback on the game. So that's just part of the process.
I don't think this is an Amy Hennig thing. Like I sense there's blood in the water, but I don't think there is in this one. I think he's just on vacation. That's the sense I got.
It's interesting, Andy. Do you remember back in like 2012 when we were at Naughty Dog for the Last of Us cover story, and we did a video interview with you and the two co-presidents of Naughty Dog talking about like, hey, we're becoming a 2-game studio. It is this big hurdle to overcome to become a 2-game studio for Uncharted 3 and Last of Us. And it feels like that crumbled for a little bit once Last of Us shipped because they had to get all hands on deck for Uncharted 4. Do you get the sense that with this Uncharted expansion alongside Last of Us Part 2 that they're becoming a 2-game studio again?
I mean, I think, you know, any studio, you got to remember they're always working to be efficient, right? Which is like the production teams, you know, artists, you know, and things like that are working on the games. They want to keep them engaged, right? You know what I mean? They don't want to have them sit in the office doing nothing for 6 months. So, I mean, they were always working on 2 games, right? And even if these are the 2 games that we know about that are in production, you know, that are being built right now, there is without a doubt a 3rd game, you know, that is being like flushed out, right? But they, you know, flushing out a game is not, you know, talking to my developer friends, and I'm not talking specifically Naughty Dog here, but I mean, you know, there's a lot to think about and like what kind of game you're going to make, and a lot of people you're going to talk to, and a lot of people you've got to convince that this is the game that we should make, right? Because I mean, it's a big decision. You know, I think that's why that trip to see The Last of Us was so interesting, in that you're like, wow, you guys are. You know, they did a new IP for every new generation of hardware, but they kind of quit with Uncharted. You know what I mean? Like they actually brought it forward and brought it to a new platform, which was kind of different for them. So they'd done that, but I felt like it was just a complete departure from things they'd done in the past, right? As far as Last of Us goes. And I think that speaks to the studio spending time and thinking about what they're going to make and like where they're going to go and what directions they're going to go. So I would imagine, you know what I mean? Like, and you know, maybe that's the opportunity that Bruce is taking or something like that, like, hey, they're probably looking for a new idea. They're probably looking for something new and different. And like, if Bruce gets an opportunity to go do something on his own, or Neil gets a chance to do a game on his own, wow, I think those 2 guys might have earned it. Yeah. Right. And I think those 2 guys know, I mean, they, at least any experience I've had with them, they're very smart and very talented. And so like getting a chance to have them work on titles, and just even if they're not in full production, that they're being worked on and fleshed out is, I think, important stuff that needs to be done. I mean, that's a game doesn't just, you don't, like I said this, Neil, you don't just like write the draft script, go in, shoot it once, then leave and see you guys later. You know what I mean? Like you're going to go back, you're going to reshoot, you're going to do a lot of things to kind of flesh the story out. And as we mentioned on the panel, like the endings for both the games were changed, being both Left Behind and The Last of Us. That they had an ending that they thought was the one they wanted, and people, like, even, you know, he said just people throughout Naughty Dog were like, dude, we're not showing this, we need to show this, like this needs to happen, and you know, and they just have to, you know, go through all the hoops to get that done, you know.
And now they do that for the entire game for Last of Us Part 2 again and again and again.
Yeah.
So a lot of work left ahead of them. Surreal, Marvel versus Capcom Infinite.
Yeah.
This was leaked ahead of time a little bit.
Yeah, there were rumors swirling about who would be in it, who wouldn't be in it. And, but most people were kind of like, I'm pretty sure it's coming.
So what'd you think of the reveal?
So we met with them after that reveal, after that first reveal trailer, but before the gameplay trailer, which they showed at the end of Capcom Cup. and they have like a lot of big picture ideas about what they want this game to be. But from what we saw, it seemed like a very accessible game, a more accessible version of sort of that Marvel versus Capcom. I know it's kind of a weird thing to think about, but they want the people who look at the concept of Marvel versus Capcom of like, oh, I'm a big Marvel guy. I like Mega Man. I like all of the classics, Street Fighter and Dark Souls characters, all these things. But what Marvel is now is very complex at this point, because they mentioned like when you play Marvel vs. Capcom 3, you have to pick 3 characters, and each of those characters you pick one of 3 assists. Mm-hmm. And so the way those things interact with each other like create this like combination of like, okay, this combo includes me attacking, and my team order has to be in this position in order for this combo to actually work, so I can do an attack, call an assist, and then do the right super and like cancel that and do another super. Like it's
fun to watch, but it's nonsense if you don't know what.
If you don't know what's going on, it's like it's
very
kind of
complex.
Yeah. So I was talking with Brian Shea because he wrote like a long list of characters he'd want to see, and that was one of his things. Was like, I really like the idea, but like the screen can just become super chaotic.
Just relax a little bit, Capcom. Just
yeah. So like this game, they took out 2 things. They messed around with 2 things that I think a lot of hardcore fans see as like super fundamental to that series, which is 3 versus 3 combat, which really only Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and 3, but those are kind of like the big ones. And assists, which is when a character comes in, does an attack, and then leaves. So both of those are gone. Like it's 2 versus 2.
Wow.
And no assists. So what they've replaced it with is you can tag in at any time instantly. So like in the gameplay trailer, they showed like Ryu doing like a light, medium, heavy attack, and then immediately switching into Mega Man, and Mega Man came in immediately, sort of like in Cross Tekken when the characters would immediately switch. And then he did like a whole other air combo, and then like they both did like their supers together. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had a fun
Keighley
bonding
Kojima
moment where they just completely destroyed Iron Man. So we got 6 total characters revealed over the weekend. They had that initial reveal where they showed Iron Man and Miss Marvel for the Marvel side, and Ryu and Mega Man X for the Capcom side. I'm sure like everyone was freaking out because Mega Man wasn't in the last one, and he wasn't in any game Capcom has made in the last few years.
Wait, Mega Man was never in MVC3?
In 3. He was in the game as an alternate costume for Zero.
Wait, so Tron and Rocket Raccoon make the cut, and Mega Man didn't?
But Mega Man does not.
Good
it was
Lord.
That was people were upset by that, and so seeing Mega Man X on that screen, people were like, "All right, you've got me." Like there was people saying, "Like
you got me."
Yeah,
here's my money.
Yeah, people were actually like,
come on,
super excited about like when they saw that trailer. People were yelling, "Take my money, Capcom!" in the audience, and of course it was Capcom Cup. So of course,
but what they didn't see were X-Men.
Well, they did not see X-Men. So the other 2 characters that they revealed were Captain America and Morgan, which was after the end of the ESPN broadcast of Capcom Cup. So they had like this weird later reveal. But yeah, so there was the rumor going around that because of the way the film rights work with like X-Men and Fantastic Four being owned by Fox in terms of films and them wanting to create their own Marvel Cinematic Universe, that there weren't going to be any X-Men or Fantastic Four characters. So when we met with them before that gameplay trailer, I asked that exact question. Is like, is that going to be the case? And he gave me a vague answer, but it was what he told me was that we know people want X-Men characters in this, and we want those fans to be happy. So that heritage is not lost. Is the thing they told me. So nothing to announce. We went into that meeting saying like, we're not gonna tell you who else is in it.
What do you think of Quicksilver?
Ooh.
What about Scarlet Witch?
I was gonna say,
interesting.
They're gonna go total B League X-Men, and they're gonna be like, "We got X-Men."
But again, because like it goes back to the roots of this crossover, right? Because the first that I can think of is X-Men versus Street Fighter.
The first time that Marvel and Capcom worked together was on an X-Men fighting game called Children of the Atom.
Right, but there weren't. But the first crossover was
I believe it was X-Men versus Street Fighter.
Right, so it's weird to now not have any. In theory,
yeah.
But we don't know for sure if it's just Marvel Cinematic, right?
Yeah, so that answer, like his answer was sort of like, we really want it to like we know people want X-Men in this game because like they are both super important characters, and like in terms of like the hardcore competitive scene, Wolverine, Doctor Doom, and Magneto are super important to like the higher tiers of that game.
Okay.
So they're aware of it. my guess is that we probably will see some X-Men despite like whatever the
Well, I mean, I think too, if you're Capcom and it's like, okay, look, we can't get a deal that gets the X-Men, but we can get all these other Marvel characters, and we can finally make the next Marvel versus Capcom. I mean, not to be, I'm not endorsing not having X-Men, but I mean, like, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And, and I think too, like from your description, it doesn't sound like they're making the game. I mean, it's still going to have a high end where guys mix together two combos instantly between two characters is going to make it complex.
It'll still be impenetrable. Don't worry.
Yeah. But I mean, it sounds like to me too that they want it to be a little bit more like. I mean, it's not going to be Smash or anything like that, but that like I think they want like a very easy. Like you said at the beginning, like I like Marvel. I want to play that Marvel game where I like kick and punch. Right, that you can get in and play at that level before it gets too deep, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because like the basic core of Marvel vs. Capcom is like from a gameplay perspective is if I press buttons, combos happen. So like you can press light, medium, heavy, and they will always combo. You don't have to worry about like I need to wait a second before this before hitting this next button, so it combos. So like all those moves cancel into each other really seamlessly. The thing where it gets hard is like putting all these other elements of like the assists of like different team orders and like some like Marvel vs. Capcom 3 had some physics-based stuff. Getting all this stuff together was sort of like the thing that kept the people who were like, oh, I like Ryu and I like Wolverine. I would like to see them fight.
Right.
That stuff sort of pushed them away. And so Capcom wants those people back by saying like, you can combo whatever you want, and the only thing you have to worry about in terms of complexity is 2 characters and this thing called Infinity Stones, which is a nod to the Infinity Gauntlet thing.
Right.
So they're likening them to grooves from Capcom vs. SNK 2. And for those who don't know, basically you would pick a groove and it would change how your character played. I know you're falling asleep right now, but just bear with me.
Crazy modifiers, right?
Right. So like that would change the way your character played.
Okay, got it.
So like one Ryu would be different from the other if you use different Infinity Stones. So one of them made combos faster, one of them increased the amount of damage that certain attacks did. So they want that to be like it. Like here's your toolkit. 2 characters, 1 Infinity Stone. That's all you have to worry about. And you can just go in and do the combos that you know you can do because there's only 2 characters.
Basically dive kick. Got it.
Exactly.
Reiner, the old wallflower. What was the best thing you played at PSX?
Well, there was a bunch of stuff. I liked this odd multiplayer shooter type of game called Dreadnought.
Yeah, it's a space
big, heavy
thing.
Starships.
Yeah.
So that's up on the site right now on Science Fiction Weekly.
I think it's from the Spec Ops: The Line developer.
It is from Jaeger. Yes.
Yeah. So weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that announced at PSX or at the Game Awards?
It was announced in 2014. The PS4 version was announced at PSX. Okay. But yeah, I played 5v5, and it is like controlling a Star Destroyer from Star Wars, moving very slowly, but you're managing you feel like you're like managing every station on the bridge at once, like shields up, fire the salvo, evasive maneuvers, all in like one fluid kind of motion of like 3 button presses.
So it's like Assassin's Creed ship combat a little bit?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
You nailed it.
No, is there any analogy? Is that...
No, I would say it's more like, man, I can't remember that one ship battle on water, that game.
Bloodwake.
No.
Oh.
No,
wow, Bloodwake. I did not
Star Trek Online.
Rod Ferguson.
Yeah,
that's the director on that.
Yeah.
Gears of War. But no, it's a very different experience, yet it's not as fast or frantic as like a Call of Duty or Battlefield, but the intensity level is still there where you really are doing everything you can to keep your ship alive and take out the others. It was very cool.
And that's the most promising thing you played? That's crazy.
That was,
Wow.
I played Crash Bandicoot.
Okay, now we're talking here. The remaster. They finally showed
I played 2 levels.
Insane.
Hang on. Okay, that very basic
Insane
idea.
Trilogy.
They call it the Insane Trilogy. It's one of those things like, oh yeah, of course it's Crash. Then wait, why are they calling it Insane? What is the logic there?
The first level of the game is called
Insanity, right?
Yeah, okay, but anyways, go on, Reiner. Damn it.
But anyway,
I remember Engine and Entropy were characters, but why were those? Anyways.
All the levels be identical, like down to the very, like his spin move having kind of the same range on it, so you got to be really close to enemies to hit it, but it looks beautiful.
Even
enemies
Crash?
and he's all fuzzy.
Okay.
Enemies are finally textured. I don't know if you remember the original game where it was just like, is that a turtle or what?
Oh,
what the hell
so
is
confusing.
that thing?
Yeah.
So they all kind of unify with Crash. Everything looks like the same cartoon style now. But I got to play 2 levels, and that game still holds up. You know, like I remember seeing the game, and Andy probably does as well, at E3 for the first time in 1996.
Oh my God.
And it just having that wow factor of like, this is something special. And then I go to Sony's behind the closed doors room where all their demos were, and the game that had the biggest crowd was Crash Bandicoot again.
That's so bizarre.
And it was so cool to see, but it's like, this game is still fun.
I just love that in 2016, on this big stage in the trailer, they emphasize Papu Papu, the completely forgettable boss from the first area in Crash 1. And all the stuff they showed was just from Crash 1, as far as I could tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't show anything from 2 or 3 yet. But it is going to be all 3 of those games that Naughty Dog made in one trilogy pack for $40, which is going to be awesome. That's
awesome.
Vicarious Visions that is doing it. They've done Crash stuff in the past.
Yeah, when's it coming out?
Don't know yet.
Sometime this year, maybe?
Oh, yeah.
2017?
2017 is what they're saying at this point.
Wow, that's exciting. All right.
And I should preface this, by the way. Horizon Zero Dawn didn't have any new gameplay. It was the same demo from E3, so... You know, obviously that's a big game coming out this year, but we didn't play it because...
But that new trailer was cool with like all the like robot animals.
Yep, and
looked
the
really cool.
tease of going to the underground, which is some kind of secret down there. Yeah, the new trailer is very cool.
Yeah.
So much like the Game Awards, something else that people really like to shit all over for some reason is Knack.
Yes.
They announced Knack 2, and it's just the punching bag of the industry. I don't know how it got slotted in that way. Like, it was a fine game.
Yeah, and the trailer they made couldn't have looked worse. Like, they really just, like, sent him off to die a second time. Like, you look at that trailer, it's, like, awful.
Well, they have, like, Move Your Body as the soundtrack for the Knack 2 reveal.
But I played that game behind closed doors again, and they really listened. They knew they came up short with the first one. They listened to consumer feedback. They knew their game was repetitive. It was too hard. And people wanted a more complete co-op experience. And they are kind of answering all of those calls in this Knack game, where it felt like a Jak and Daxter game, kind of. Not open world, but more of a contained linear version. But you got the double jumps into the glide, you know, some harrowing platforming sequences, throwing in combat up on platforms, continuing on the platforming. I really like the feel of it. And co-op is very unique in this one. In couch co-op, you could drop in and out. If you played the first game, you could have another Knack come in, but he couldn't transform. He was just small, just kind of there for whatever shits and giggles, right? But this one, he is a fully featured second playable character. And they've done something unique with griefing, where you can go over, and let's say Serial's the other Knack. I could punch him in the face. That's funny on its own, right? Like, you disrupt whatever he's doing.
It's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
As you hit him, a spray of his relics, you know, the parts he's composed of, flies out of the back of his head, and that is like a shotgun blast. So you could use your partner for like ranged combat. So you could set him up in front of you and be like, Serial, stand there, and then do this like charge attack and do this like almost Gatling gun spray.
Punching the bejesus out of your partner?
You could charge up like a kick and kick him, and then he'll turn into kind of like a torpedo of these relics that goes flying. So there's like all this strategy. Or if you jump up in the air and slam down on him, he explodes like a grenade. You know, his parts go showering out. That hurts the enemies. So you have this like extra dynamic of not just teaming up and beating up the enemies, but using your partner as a weapon, which is very cool. I was surprised with this demo. It felt like a more fully featured game. It was really fun.
Wow.
And they want everyone to be able to play it. They want a lot of checkpoints. You couldn't respawn. You didn't have regenerating health in the last one. All that's in this now. So if your co-op partner stays alive, you die. If he stays alive long enough, you'll come back.
It's really interesting.
Seems like a complete change for the series, exactly where it needed to go. I'm just as surprised as everyone else that it came back.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was going to be one and done IP, like just this weird launch title we'll never hear of again. But I think they knew they had something. They just missed the mark, and they tried again. And I think they might hit it with this one. We'll see.
It had its haters, and it also had like its defenders. Like, I remember Helgeson.
I thought it was okay.
Helgeson used to always be like, "You guys stop making fun of Knack." You know what I mean? Like, there was,
and then she would get on Twitter, "Thanks, Matt."
Yeah.
The basic mechanics were sound, right? Like, there was some fun there, but it just got so long in the tooth. So it was an okay game. It was fun at times.
I like the idea of Mark Cerny. The big talking point with Knack 1 was, we're making this like Crash 1, and now he's going forward a Naughty Dog generation.
Yeah, right.
We're making this like Jak and Daxter.
Knack 3 will just be like
Uncharted.
Nathan Drake. Yeah.
Oh, Knack 4.
They're going to give him a shirt.
That's going to be very
and he's going to
bizarre.
half tuck it.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Did you play anything else, Serial, that was exciting?
Yeah, I played quite a few rounds of Nidhogg 2. which if for those who don't know the first game was a sort of one-on-one fencing game with like some really trippy visuals and like basically like a push and pull sort of mechanic where when you kill them you would move one screen basically to the right or left depending on your side, and the goal was to make it to the end where there was a giant worm that would eat you.
You won.
Yeah. You won, get eaten by this giant thing, become the sacrifice for this giant worm. So Nidhogg 2 is a completely different art style. And when
everybody hated it when it was unveiled.
Yeah, I hated it too. Like when I saw it, I was like, "What are they doing?" Like, because I really like the music and the visuals of like Nidhogg 1, but I played like a few rounds of it, and the art style and motion actually looks really cool. Like I'm totally on board with it now, because it is very different, and like instead of being this very like sort of almost abstract expression of combat, it's just like this brutal, violent, like instead of the thing where they pulled when you down someone and approach their body, you would pull the sword out of their back basically, and in this one you just stomp them like over and over again. So it's like very hyper violent, but they're also like adding a number of things to them. Like they're instead of just the rapier, you have like a dagger and a claymore. And the dagger is a lot faster, but it doesn't have any range, and the claymore swings downward instead of like thrusting forward, so it has like a longer range that it'll cover, but not as quickly. And they also have bows and arrows in this game. So you pick one up and it has infinite ammo, and you just spray arrows over and over again. But if you know what you're doing, you can sort of dodge them. But I still think they're kind of like a bit too strong at this point. But from what I played of it, it seemed really fun. Like it seemed like it is not breaking what made the first one really cool, and it feels like its own sort of distinct thing.
And I heard they added 3v3 and assists to this one. So
yeah, they actually borrowed them from Marvel's Capcom.
Do they have the X-Men?
Yeah, so this is where you're gonna get this is X-Men versus Nidhogg. It's gonna
be the world's most hideous X-Men. Enjoy.
Yeah, exactly.
Real quick, other things. They announced a Wipeout collection. Is this just like a remaster of a bunch of stuff?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the old ones, but
Destiny. Did you see this stuff, Andy, about the Destiny update?
Yeah. It's the Sparrow Racing and the things like that they're kind of adding in. So it's like a good. It's part of their like commitment to bringing more events to the game in the game world. So I think it's great.
I think they announced that they're sticking around this time. After the event is over, they're going to have
racing. We won't abandon you this time.
No, well, because like
with the racing.
The racing's going to stick around after the event.
Parappa, they released a remastered demo, and the whole remaster is coming soon. It looks
well. I mean, I think you got to remember that I think that's one of the cool things that Sony does is that they listen to the fans. They're like, we want Parappa, we want Wipeout, and I'm sure if you sat down with like their business dev guys, they're like, we're not making a $50 million Wipeout or whatever, but we can make a remake, and if the fans go crazy, then we can maybe convince someone to make like a full on sequel. So I mean, I think it's something like I think that's cool that they're making some of these remakes and bringing them back, and we're getting a chance to play them and be able to play them on a big TV and look great and everything like that. So, but I mean, I think it's also a chance for that's your vote. I mean, I always like to remind people like when those come out, if like one of those things blows up, they're going to be like, maybe we should make a sequel to that. And, I'm in particular for Parappa, I would love a new Parappa game. So I'm going to kind of push that, maybe you pick up the remaster and like that says that we want one.
And then they can give it to Harmonix. We can get something cool out of this whole thing.
Yeah,
it's a done deal.
Yeah, exactly.
GT Sport, Gran Turismo seemed fine.
Oh my gosh. So I had a 45-minute demo for this, and this is one of those demos. Sometimes developers don't focus on the right thing, and you know it right away, like when you go in the demo room and the door closes and then it disappears and it's just a wall and you can't get out of there. And so the focus was on nits. Do you guys know what nits are?
Nits?
It is the luminous levels in a display or a TV or cameras can display.
What?
So for 45 minutes, I learned that they are making GT Sport at 10,000 nits. Now, a standard HDR camera does 1,000. A 4K TV nowadays, a high-end 4K TV does 1,500. They're going for 10,000. So they said 3 to 4 years from now, we think TVs will be on par with what we're doing in this game now.
That sounds like
and
so
they'll
much
be
fun.
Able to take
This is
advantage
why
of it.
Polyphony games take forever to be made. Can you just make it for the thing we own now?
Because they're trying to do that.
Could you just do that?
They had two TVs, two 70-inch TVs set up with SDR and HDR. And for 40 minutes, I watched cars go around a track in a demo mode. And all the journalists just sat there watching, like looking at lights. Every once in a while, a journalist would be like, that sun looks better on the HD. And then, Himachi would be like, hey,
Smiling.
And I'm like in the room like, where'd the damn door go? How do I get out of here?
Just feeling a black ball on the side.
How many nits does it take to make that door reappear?
Good God. But when's that coming out? Did they say 2017?
Yeah, 2017 sometime.
Okay. Ni no Kuni 2, they showed a little bit.
A trailer,
Yeah,
just
the
at
trailer.
the awards, yeah.
Okay, looks good. Next Machina. Eugene Jarvis partnering up with Miller's
Resogun.
favorite.
Yeah. I played 6-7 stages, and it's very much Robotron. Like 100% Robotron, but with some kind of new gen ideas of, turret setup, stuff like that.
50-year-olds out there are salivating at this.
Yeah,
idea.
I mean, it looks beautiful.
To be fair, I mean, Jarvis is one of the people that is like, we play games today that are direct descendants of his
Right.
games that he made like by himself, kind of thing.
And what,
So,
Robotron, Defender.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
but-
he's a
Big name.
Yeah, no one knew. That's the funny thing. Like in the auditorium, it's everyone bye, and they're like, "Who?" You know what I mean? Like,
It
no
is
clue.
Yeah,
a love letter to him, and they brought him in to present him that love letter.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Windjammers, they're bringing to PS4. How did that go over in the crowd?
Andy was in the crowd. We were
Yeah,
on the
I mean-
sidewalk.
I mean, I guess I gotta tell you, I was watching. I was like, "There's no way that is the SNK Frisbee game," and I was like, "Or it is." That's like it's funny because that is a rare Neo Geo card. It's really hard to get. So I mean, to a lot of hardcore like Neo Geo people, it's considered like one of the best games in the series, and that says a lot because I mean Neo Geo had a ton of fighting games, which Serial can obviously comment on. It's weird that is one of the kind of cult games that came from the SNK Neo Geo days, and so it's a cool. As soon as I saw that, I was like, when are we bringing back Super Dodgeball? Who's gonna pick up Super Dodgeball?
It's the next crusade.
Like, let's do it.
I wonder if the original cult was this game's rare, but then that was misinterpreted as that game's cool.
People are talking about it.
Yeah, so they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, Windjammers was cool, and it's like, no, it's just rare.
I think it's also this weird PlayStation nod to the Giant Bomb community because Giant Bomb has been championing that game for years and years.
So
and
they're the
years.
ones that misinterpreted it.
I
No,
think so.
I mean, like it's one of those like it's a fast action game. I mean, there's people making other games in
Sure.
that kind of like video sport. I mean, it's one of the
Totally.
original like video sport. I mean, that's why I think of Super Dodgeball. It was one of those games. It's pretty simple. You're just moving someone around on the kind of the field and hitting the guy
the
on the other
ball.
side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was in the press room actually just like hanging out, and I was watching with Jammers, and there were two people playing it, and the one guy was just owning the other dude's face. Yeah, I mean, like the other guy just had no chance and just annihilating him on the other side. So I mean, there's a skill to win jamming.
Of course. Reiner, in one of the montage videos during the conference, they showed what looked like a sim game in PSVR, and there's little dinosaurs.
Yeah.
What was this?
Dino Frontier.
Should I be excited about this?
You should. It's the Wild West meets Jurassic era.
Okay.
So take your typical canyon setting, kind of scorched earth, little frontier town set up there. You're managing that town. So you need to go out, chop wood, get resources, hunt. But you're not hunting buffalo, stuff like that. You're hunting raptors, and they're in return hunting you. So you got to be careful. They'll come to your town.
My God.
They'll come to your town, but you can also domesticate them. So you could ride them instead of horses. So you could have raptor riding cowboys.
PSVR exclusive?
VR exclusive. It is very simplistic. What I played was uses 2 move controllers to simulate your hands, and all you do is pick up villager, turn him into a rider, or a forager. Pick up this guy, have him do this. Pick up a flag, set the waypoint to where you want him to go hunt, and that's it.
That
So-
sounds like the first killer app for VR. I'm in.
It is, to that point, it is a game I think you will spend more time than you normally do in a VR game. I think this is one you could spend hours and hours and hours.
You're not
playing.
going to get sick.
Yeah.
Anything else we missed?
Garu Marker of the Wolves.
Oh,
One
yeah.
of the greatest SNK fighting games ever made is
Coming
on
to PlayStation 4?
Yeah, that and Ultimate Marvel are both available on PS4 now.
That's right. Yeah, that's cool. Great. Well, hey, it was a fun weekend. Stay tuned in on news.
Yeah, it was kind of like the fireworks happened early with the press conference. Like Naughty Dog
Mm-hmm.
was the talk of the whole show. 2 games from them. That was just remarkable. But there's a lot of cool games there to play. A lot of little stuff, a lot of indie. Like if you haven't been to PlayStation Experience, huge indie section where it's about 50 to 70 devs set up over there. just showing off their games. And then obviously Sony has all their big games on display too. So it's a cool show. It's a fun little thing.
Yeah, right. Well, thanks for talking about it, guys. And that's it for this episode of the Game Informer Show. Be sure to tune in next Thursday when we'll have a new episode waiting for you. Bye, everybody.